Camelot Kings, they will drop 3 members of the Titans.
The Tartarus Titans lose the threat. The Camelot Kings, simply by walking to the jungle, distract.
They've done it. The Camelot Kings, after one more fight, they'll get the ring for Twig, untouched, unscathed. Bow down to your kings, the Camelot Kings, champions of the world.
The Hammer returns to the stage. Please welcome your Season 9 SMITE World Champion, Camelot Kings. The players are bringing you the gameplay all weekend long, but who's bringing you the calls? Welcome to the stage, your casters and analysts for the weekend. It's a feud match to end the day, your 4th quarterfinal. Welcome the Oni Warriors and the Camelot Kings. Our 3rd quarterfinal of the day. The SEC makes its return. Welcome the Leviathans and Hex Mambo. Fans' hearts will be broken in our 2nd quarterfinal of the day. It's the Jade Dragons and the Highland Ravens. What do you say, SMITE fans? Let's get it started. Welcome your 1st quarterfinalist to the stage. It's the Solar Scarabs. Finally, a core hoping to make it back to the grand finals. Your #1 seed, Styx Ferrymen. Stage now literally set as the teams have taken their places. I can't do it alone all day. My name is Dolson. Mifflin, Inbound, and Hazer join me for the first time this weekend. Miff, the teams are here. We've arrived. The SMITE World Championship officially upon us.
The energy's electric back there, man. I mean, it's not often we get to walk out with those players. Those guys are going crazy right now. I mean, there's yelling. There's a lot of slapping, surprisingly, as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just exciting being here. Like, being in the back, going through that, it's a lot different, but I mean, the energy's huge. It's so much fun just walking through and just seeing everyone.
It almost made me forget how washed up I am being up there with those guys. I don't know about you, Miff and Bobby, but I felt good up there.
Hazer, did you catch a slap backstage, or did you avoid?
That was the most I've been touched in years, Dave.
Goodness.
Right.
brand risk, something like that, right out of the gates. We've got a great lineup of matches here this weekend, fellas. Let's do it in reverse order, though, a little bit later on today. I introed it as maybe a grudge match, you know, some roster swaps happening earlier on this year. Miff, in our fourth quarterfinal, we get the Oni Warriors versus the Camelot Kings. Before that, we get Jade Dragons, Highland Ravens. Leviathans, Mambo, is our third quarterfinal of the day. Dragons, Ravens, your second. Ferrymen, Scarabs start us off. Great day at quarterfinals, Miff. The last one, though, is what I want to zoom in on first. It's the Oni Warriors and the Camelot Kings. Last year's champions, but on different sides of the stage.
I mean, there's grudge matches there as well. We've got a defector in genetics going over to the Oni Warriors. The Camelot Kings had to pick up Quig to replace him. We saw him put down the hammer a little bit earlier. I think emotions are going to be running high in that one. I would love to hear from those players in particular, just to see if maybe there is some bad blood between them.
Inbound, as a player who's had to play against former teammates at points in your career, does that play into your mental in a matchup like this? Is there something extra for genetics in a game like this? Is there something extra for Twig in a matchup like you'll see later today?
I mean, there's always going to be something extra there. I think it's a different than you want to eliminate them. You just don't want to lose to them, and that's what it is. In genetics, he talks about it where he says he doesn't like have any ill will towards them. He doesn't need to beat them or anything, but you don't want to lose. And then when you're stuck in this quarterfinals in this matchup, I mean, you want to be the one to win this.
Well, Hazer, it's a team in the Oni Warriors that came out of the gates hot at the beginning of the year. I've left now, so I'm immune to the casters getting it wrong on the Oni Warriors, right? I'm officially beyond that. But the casters got it wrong about the Oni Warriors at the beginning of the year, saw what they were capable of. What's the read on the Oni Warriors coming into this tournament?
Yeah, I think a lot of people were pretty upset about the roster change they chose to make. They were looking incredible, and then they decided to replace Jake with genetics with their eye on this end of the season, right? They made that change to make sure that they can come into this tournament, and they've got all the tools they need to win Worlds. They wanted to be able to go later. They brought genetics in for that, to have more playstyles available to them, and now's the time that they need to prove that that decision was right to the fans.
Miff, do you feel like that this team has really refined their play style down? We wondered if it would be a bit Wild West at the beginning of the year. They did run it down a good bit. Do you think the essence of this team, though, has been figured out? Is it more clean than maybe it was earlier in the year, though it was winning then, too?
It was, I mean, a historic win streak, the longest win streak a SMITEPro team has ever seen, but the version of this team that we have now with genetics at the helm has been largely different. You can really see it a lot in maybe some of these late game scenarios where the looser players on the Oni Warriors get a bit crazy. Maybe SOT's at your Phoenix for some reason. Pagon's going to be there with them. I mean, it's the dynamic duo. So is it cleaner? I would say so, especially around those objectives. But it's just about whether or not genetics can keep those guys reined in with all this energy in the arena.
Well, and when you're talking about historic runs, the Kings run at Worlds last year comes to mind. But inbound, it's been a different look of the Camelot Kings here as of late. What type of team is coming into the SMITE World Championship on the Kings side of the stage?
I mean, I think that's absolutely right. This is a different team to last year. I think they still have some semblance of the same strengths as last year. I just think that they struggle at certain points early game. They really struggle to get through it. When it goes late, they don't have that single shot caller kind of guiding them where they need to go, and they kind of struggle in that portion of it.
Well, that's our fourth quarterfinal of the day. Cannot wait to get to that one. Our third quarterfinal of the day, just before that, will be the Atlantis Leviathans up against Hex Mambo. Hazer, Hex Mambo has a storied past as far as beating SPL teams. Now the roster's a little bit different, but this is a team and players on this team have made their way to Worlds in the past. Can they get it done against one of the best SPL teams?
I think it's a real tough one. I mean, they've got a really hard matchup there. They came through, it almost wasn't a surprise anymore that Mambo made it to Worlds. They came into that qualification tournament as one of the favorites to qualify. But now they're here on this stage, and it's different gravy, I think, especially against that top three in the SBL who have proved that they have been head and shoulders above the rest of the teams so far this year.
On the other side of the stage will be the Atlantis Leviathans. A lot of players hoping to get it done here this weekend. Inbound, what do the Leviathans need to do, not only today, but all weekend long, to hit their stride and make a run at Worlds?
I mean, I think this is the most interesting team in the tournament because they have so many styles that they want to play with. And I think it comes down to when they get to that late game, will they just all be on the same page? They've struggled at certain points in the late game with you know, following the same shot call, and their early game is usually pretty good, but if they can just come together, follow that one call, whether it's Panda Cat, Shinto, whoever it is, if they can do that, I think they can really shout in this tournament.
Mifflin, remember, this is a Leviathan's team that had picked up Zapman in the past. Mid-year, bring back Panda Cat. How has that roster change played out in your mind?
Man, it goes back to the interview the first week Panda Cat's in the studio. He says, look, I joined this team, they're 6th seed, and that's just not good enough for me. We're gonna have to get those numbers up. And since then, the leadership that he has brought has revitalized this squad. I mean, the shot calling's gone great. He's really dominating his lane. Panda Cat's impressed me a lot.
And I think the big thing with this team is Panda's now allowed them to play that early game through him. I think that's actually something they struggled with when they had Zapman, is they didn't have that de facto lane, we want to go here. And you know Panda, if he gets that on her, he's saying, come to my lane, let's go to that purple buff.
Hazer, I don't know if we can move on from this death segment without talking about the jungle matchup when it comes to Leviathans versus Hex Mambo. A storied one that potentially by the end of it, is there a clear favorite in the jungle in your mind in our third quarterfinal of the day?
It's interesting because Johnny's always been touted as the next adapting, right? But it feels like in the last tournament, he wasn't playing the hyper carry style so much. He's moved away and he's become a little bit of a facilitator for this team. Not so focused on the Ao Kwangs, on the Kalis. Maybe that's because of the meta, maybe it's not, but he's become more well-rounded, which I think is something that Adapting did in his career as well, right? He moved forward and he managed to pick up more of a Captain Twig playstyle where he could facilitate his team as well as carrying. So I do think it is Adapting versus Adapting Junior. But the King, he's still up there, you know, he's still around.
Right, the Adapting is still playing this week, and that storyline unfolds later on today. Our second quarterfinal will be the Jade Dragons and the Highland Ravens. I introduced this, Mifflin, as some hearts may break in the crowd. Lots of fan-favorite players going to be taking the stage second today. What's your initial read on Dragons v Ravens?
I mean, immediately I go to it and I think this is like a 7-time rematch this year alone. Every single land, the Dragons and PB, I mean, he'll complain about it every opportunity he gets. I always match up against Van at these tournaments, and then he'll follow it up with it. I always beat him, but he's right. It's been very Dragon-sided, and I would argue this weekend, this is the strongest version of the Jade Dragons we've had all year.
Yep. And look, this Jade Dragons team, a team that has made some roster changes, the Ravens have as well. Not in support, though. In support being Mike v. Hurrywind. Love these two players, love what they've been able to do. Inbound, break down what you're seeing here between these two players, their gods and expectations in their matchup today.
I think Hurry's been one of the most surprising supports through this year. Last year he made that swap from mid to support. He was struggling, to say the least, but now that he's fully kind of evolved into that ability to backline, ability to dive, I've been really impressed with what he's able to do in these games. He kind of has had a little bit of a Mike style in support. He likes to play those early game harass gods, but he can also play some more backline Yamojis, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of matchup these two will go to. Will they be double backline? Will it be double frontline looking to dive? That's how the meta is. I'd assume backline, but it'll be interesting to still see how it kind of breaks down.
Well, the dual lane is Zap and Hurry against Mike and Coast. Hazer, the dual lane could have some fireworks here in our second quarterfinal.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's somewhere that the Dragons will have targeted. They'll have watched that qualification tournament and they'll have seen Zap go 07. They'll have seen Hurry get first blooded under Tower's tier. Maybe it was first blood, maybe it wasn't. But anyway, he died under the Tower's tier, that's for sure. And I think this is somewhere that the Dragons will look to play through. They'll look to pick aggressive picks over there, invade purple buffs, play around that shield buff, and let Coast play aggressive. That is where he excels, and I think that is the game plan they'll come in with.
I wonder if there's a body paint diff, though. We've shown a couple crowd shots already. The Jade Dragons PBM fans are out in the crowd. They're painted up. I know, they're here all the time. They hit the drink booths already. They're feeling good in the crowd of the SMITE World Championship.
Man. We already opened those up.
Look at them. You think they're worried about it? Absolutely not. They're feeling good. They're ready to go. And their favorite team will play in our second quarterfinal of the day. Our first quarterfinal matchup, fellas, we'll get more in depth on it here in a little bit. But Styx Ferrymen up against the Solar Scarabs. This is your #1 seed, Styx Ferrymen. I think with that inbound, you probably give them your vote, an early vote, before we see picks and bans in our first quarterfinal.
Yeah, just from what we've seen all year, this Ferryman team has entirely impressed. The good side is no pressure really on the Scarab, so all the pressure right now is on the Ferrymen. They're the ones that are going to have to show out, show that they're that 1 seed. Scarabs just have to go in, just play some Smite, lock in some gods that they like Deathwalker likes to do.
Miff, do you think Deathwalker could play spoiler today?
Against Baskin? Woon Young Kim, the uncrowned king? Are you joking me? That's the GOAT. He's been the GOAT for all time, I think. I mean, legitimately, I remember in season 1, season 2, we're talking about, you guys heard about Woony? You seen what he's been able to do in the lane? Look, Deathwalker's, he's a G.
We've heard
the OG.
We've heard what the desk has to say about the Styx Ferrymen. Let's hear what the players have to say about the Styx Ferrymen before our first quarterfinal.
Row it down. The Styx Ferrymen have adopted their team's motto and ran with it, becoming the most dominant team on the road to Worlds. With Season 5 champions Cyno, Aror, and CycloneSpin back together, the team has enabled Baskin and back-to-back champion Paul to fulfill their true carry potential, coalescing into a team very few have been able to overcome.
What I love most about the Ferrymen is that they kind of do their own thing. They have their own identity. They play picks that a lot of people don't play, or they're the first to bring out, like Below the Jungle or the Opwash solo, or whatever it was back then. When they do pick something weird, it's because it makes sense, right? That pick counters like what the other team wants to do in team fights or something like that, right? And it's just like the fact that they thought about it in the first place is what makes them a special team, and they have the skill to back it up. So I'm a big fan of the Ferrymen, and I think they are extremely deadly. Like a team like that is extremely deadly going into to Worlds.
They're just really smart in the way they play, in the way they draft, and they just have their own picks that they think is good. They all believe in their picks, and they all believe in the way they play, and that's what, like, they could have the worst meta possible going into Worlds, but if they all believe in it and they all try and play it the best way and they all play their picks, then they can still win because they are just that team.
They've kind of assembled like the no mistake squad, apart from like Aror and Cyno. Those guys definitely make mistakes, but like when it comes to their lanes, like Cyclone, Paul, Baskin, these guys don't really make mistakes. They're just not in their dictionary. They don't even know what it means, I guess. So it's definitely hard to play against them, because you can't really capitalize on them doing something wrong. That's it. They're unbeatable. No, I'm just kidding.
They're very methodical, very structured. They get to these objectives and these fire giants, and they can reproduce these fights like it's nothing. Like they all look the same, and they put teams in these spots where they make other teams feel uncomfortable, but the Ferrymen are also just perfectly fine just playing it really slow. If something doesn't look good, okay, let's just reset. Who cares if it didn't go well? We can still just wait 5 minutes, do it again. We'll do it better this time, it'll be fine, you know? So they just do a really good job of setting themselves up into positions they're used to, and then from that spot, just making sure they're executing.
I think the reason the Ferrymen find success, despite like all the players on the team, like the superstar carries, like I think Baskin, Paul, Cyclone, the main ones, I think is despite how good they are, they know their role in the team. Like you will see CycloneSpin give up a wave or two and the purple buff just to be a pyro on spawn, to be there and pull it. And I think they just have a good understanding of their role in the team and what they need to do individually to help their team win. And I think that's what makes them probably the best team. It's the fact that they're all on the same page, they know their roles, they know what to do, and they're willing to like sacrifice stuff to win the game for the team.
I think they're really selfless players, those three. I think that Cyclone is a person that can carry and will carry if given the opportunity, but he's not shy about, like, he's fine with like splitting, he's fine with doing stuff that's good for the team, rotating, dropping a few waves to get an objective that might get the team further ahead. And then Cyno he'll sash and he'll blink in, he'll get in there compared to some other junglers. Whether it's a warrior jungle, guardian jungle, he doesn't really care. And then Aurora, another person who will just get in there. So they kind of cause chaos in the front line and let their main win con, in my opinion, Paul kind of just do his thing and have as little pressure on him as possible.
I think to beat the Ferrymen, you need to kind of be on the same page as them. Like in terms of, if they pick a scaling mid, you pick a scaling mid. If they pick pressure duo, you match the pressure duo. And I think that's probably a main component of how to beat them is if you kind of just match them across the map, you know, if they go gold, you want to trade power, let's do that. They're a great team, but they're not like a snowball win in 10 minutes type of team. Like, they're more of like a calculated, you know, be there on time for objectives, like let me know when your power spike is, no stay in lane, don't rotate. They're more of like that type of team. So just match them and you'll be fine.
Now the only thing left to find out is if the Ferrymen are going to continue to row it down or if the first seed curse is going to strike again.
dark, but it's been a while. And just remember, it's the heat from a heart beating next to mine. But I surrender, 'cause everything I touch seems to crumble, and everyone I love leaves me broken down. Everybody runs when they see me now. So I put my hands up in the sky, revel in the storm clouds as they pass me by. Now there's no escape, I realize I'm death in the land of the living. Still all the energy when we get connected. Your good is done when you have my full attention. I'll take you away into a dark dimension, and you can't get out. I never thought I'd be like this. Further down into the deep abyss I'll go. Stay off my radar 'cause I never miss. Yeah, everybody knows. So I put my hands up in the sky, revel in the storm clouds as they pass me by. Now there's no escape, I realize I'm dead in the land of the living. Put my hands up in the sky, revel in the storm clouds as they pass me by. Now there's no escape, I realize I'm dead in the land of the living. Hands up in the sky, revel in the storm clouds as they pass me by. Now there's no escape, I realize I'm death in the land of the living. Where would I be when the sun goes down and you ain't around with me? Where would I be when the lights go out and your love ain't surrounding me? Where would I be when the sky comes alive and you're not holding me? Where would I be if you bothered me? Hey. You take me higher when you pull me closer. You'll be there with me when we're going under. You'll be the fire when the nights grow colder. Oh, tell me how can we break this wall? When I'm with you, I know we can never fall. Even if we will lose it all, I'm with you, with you. Baby, if we had only one more chance, we could break us through like an avalanche. Don't let me go, won't you take my hands? I'm with you, I'm with you. With you. Baby, if we had only one more chance, we could break us through like an avalanche. Don't let me go, won't you take my hands? I'm with you, I'm with you.
That's right, the SMITE Season 10 World Championship, powered by our friends over at SteelSeries, has officially begun. To bring all the gameplay, you need all the peripherals, and SteelSeries got you covered. Thanks to SteelSeries for being with us here all weekend long, helping us bring a lot of SMITE fun. My name's Dolson, Mifflin, Inbound, and Hazer still with me on the desk. Fellas, we have a long weekend ahead. We have best of three quarterfinals to go today, a couple semifinals tomorrow, leading into a grand finals on Sunday. And it feels like the weight of the quarterfinals this year a little bit different than any year in the past. Mifflin, what jumps out at you in our first four matchups here today?
I mean, there's always going to be the Only Warriors Camelot Kings is maybe a fan favorite matchup because of that grudge match. If you know anything about me, I love when people are at each other's throats, and I feel like that's a matchup we can really see some of that. Otherwise, I would argue Jade Dragons versus Highland Ravens may be the most competitive match here. I know a lot of people keeping their eyes on Leviathans and Mambo, though.
That's right, and both sides of the bracket looking difficult and competitive. She's coming home. This is what that Styx Ferrymen fan is hoping for. Their opponents hoping to put an early stop to the Styx Ferrymen run here are the Solar Scarabs. Inbound, it's a team that's built around a couple of players who are no strangers to the world stage. Deathwalker, Zyrhoes, they've been here before. Echrome and SMITEPro have played together in the duo lane in the past. Apreel out of the jungle. This is a very talented team. What's the play style and what's on the mind going up against the Styx Ferrymen for the Solar Scarabs?
I think a lot of it relies on Apreel and how he's going to be playing in this game. When I looked back at that tournament, a lot of the plays they were looking to make were based off of Apreel and based off of iSilenced, what they were wanting to do. A lot of the time, iSilenced is starting those fights, or Apreel is, and then on the opposite side, April's the one that's cleaning up those fights. Zyrhoes is just looking to farm. There's not really much happening mid lane. A lot of it is off of what Paul does, mostly just looking to farm. And I think the most interesting thing to me is Deathwalker in his ADC, or his solo lane meta, the auto attack warriors. Are we gonna see high prio on those? Is Baskin gonna match those? That's the interesting part to me.
Miff, what's your read on the Solar Scarabs and what they need to get done?
They've just got such a unique meta in of themselves, and when we hear from Deathwalker, he says, look, I'm going to play my own thing. I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't even know if I know the meta, but I know that Bologna works when I play it, and it really has. But what I've seen from Deathwalker is maybe a slight departure from what every other soul laner was trying to accomplish. Every other soul laner at the most recent tournament was diving the backline, trying to jump into the mage, block out some ADC auto attacks. Deathwalker said, I'm going to build Death's Embrace, I'm going to stand in front of my team, I'm going to soak damage, and I'm going to go hit a mask and resustain, rinse, repeat. If you watch the stat screen at the end of the match, his damage mitigation numbers are just through the roof. His damage output is great too.
I've been told I'm allowed to let Hazer talk again, so Hazer, I'll come to you after this. Is there a match to be played outside of solo lane here? Is it all down to Deathwalker truly? What are some other keys to victory for the Solar Scarabs?
So I think Bobby talked on a really great point, is that this team is quiet in the early game. And Zyrhoes, to put it politely, he doesn't really play until 20 minutes, right? But I feel like this might be one of the better matchups for them. Paul, also a guy who kind of likes to farm out, but I'm interested to see if he mixes that up. If he decides to get active, rotate over to side lanes, follow Cyno around, maybe pressure some purples, pressure some blues, I think that's a lever that the Ferrymen will be looking to pull in this game.
Well, we saw a lot of it last year was heaped expectations on the SEC teams after what we saw during the group stages and during qualifiers. And we know how that turned out in the quarterfinals. We had 2-0s all year last year in the quarterfinals. The question is, Miff, are we going to get a 3-game set, and does it start here?
I have so much faith in the Ferrymen, man.
I know you hate that question.
What did Final K say? They just look unbeatable? JK 10 seconds later, but that JK didn't come from a place of confidence.
I know you hate that question. I'm sorry. The 2 or 3-game set question, that's never a whole lot of fun. And I don't want the Scarabs to seem like an afterthought here, but Bobby, when they're going up against who is the #1 seed coming into this event, there's got to be pressure. But does that pressure land itself on the other side of the stage with the Ferrymen?
Yeah, I think all that pressure is on the Ferrymen. The Scarabs are coming here with, we made it out of qualies, we made it to Worlds, we kind of did what we need to do. Now it's just icing on the cake. If they can do something here, if they can make some noise, as Hazer said, this is not going to be an explosive early game set. This is going to be a slow set, go for that late game. And all it takes when you get to that late game is that one fight.
We've heard some from us about these teams, from the players about these teams. Let's hear from the players themselves. We got Kelly standing by for the interview.
Thank you so much, Dolson. Joining me here are two of the best, most innovative solo laners that SMITE has ever seen. Guys, give it up for Baskin and Deathwalker. Baskin, clearly your team is the fan favorite to come into the competition right now. The last set that you guys lost was all the way back in October. How is that affecting your team mentally?
I don't really think we think about it too much. I think people are saying we are the favorites, but I don't really think that matters that much. Just because we played well like a random weekend 2 months ago, it doesn't mean we'll play well this weekend. So yeah, I mean, we're focusing on our drafts, and if we play clean, we'll win, not because we're the favorites. So, yep.
Deathwalker, during the group stages, you said that two of your players, that was the first time that they have ever competed in a LAN, and now they are here on the global stage. How are the vibes with everyone?
Everybody's feeling pretty good. For everyone, I think it's safe to say that we've got nothing to lose. We've proved enough just getting here. We already thought we were going to lose to the Kings, to be honest. So now just getting to play against the Styx Ferrymen, getting this rematch against Baskin, I'm actually quite excited to play, and I think everybody's feeling the same way.
Now, Baskin, your team being the first seed, you had the first opportunity to pick a team to go up against in the global stage. Why did you choose the Solar Scarabs?
We just thought, well, it was kind of a hard choice. The last seed of the tournament was the Kings, which they didn't look that great, but they are the defending world champions, so we didn't really want to pick them. And they were the next seed, the next lowest seed, so it was kind of an obvious choice for us. Yeah, it was between them or the Kings. It is weird picking a professional team because they have been scrimming the whole year, and the SEC teams haven't had as many scrims. So yeah, that factored into our choice a lot for sure.
So Deathwalker, you were on an absolute tear during the group stages in the solo lane, but now you're going up against Baskin. Will that domination continue?
Well, last year I was familiarized with his game, so I think for this year I expect no less, if not maybe even better than last year from him. But I've improved myself too, so I think it's going to be, I mean, I think it's going to be a challenge, but I'd probably dominate anyways.
Baskin, what do you feel going up against a player like Deathwalker?
I mean, from what I remember last year, he was very strong in lane. And then watching the tournament this year, he pretty much, I don't think he lost lane. He pretty much smashed everyone in lane. So yeah, that's what I expect. It's very rare. Like, I've watched him for like 6 years. He very rarely puts himself in a bad spot in lane. So I expect to be a tough lane, but I think we'll pull out the win.
I know we're all excited to watch it. And I just have one more question for both of you. Is there anything that you would like to say to your opponent?
Good luck, have fun, enjoy the 2-0.
Baskin.
I guess good luck, have fun. I don't know.
All right, guys, go to your seats and let's head back to the desk.
Thank you, Kelly, Baskin, and Deathwalker. A few things come to mind after that for me here, fellas. Number one, which way is Deathwalker thinking the 2-0 go? Is he saying you're
Hard
welcome?
to know.
Is he saying you're welcome, you're getting out of here quickly because you're 2-0ing us? But it's Deathwalker. I mean, gotta be thinking it's the other way, Myth.
No, Deathwalker always has a vote of confidence in himself and in his team. I got I'd win vibes from Deathwalker there. He looks good, but I'm a little better.
And it's interesting, and we sort of talked about how the Ferrymen are the ones that maybe have the pressure on them. Baskin dispels that a little bit. A Solar Scarabs team in the past, a Deathwalker team in the past that's playing without pressure, has been a very scary team to go up against. I've also noticed Deathwalker a bit more dressed down this year. It wasn't the full suit and tie get-up that we saw last year. Hazer, you touched on the solo lane a little bit here. We haven't seen the Styx Ferrymen play in a little while. Has the meta shifted in your mind as we move into picks and bans from what we saw last time? Has priority changed, or are the Styx Ferrymen going to be just fine?
Absolutely. The meta has really shifted, and it's been a while since we've seen Baskin play it. Last time we saw him, he was playing mages. Now we're seeing Osiris and Bologna as the only things we saw Deathwalker play at the play-in tournament. We've seen Achilles, we've seen Osiris, lots of lane-dominant warriors and solo frontliners being picked up.
Well, let's delay no further. Picks and bans for game one between the Styx Ferrymen and the Solar Scarabs starting right now. Inbound, what does your mind immediately go to between these two teams as we enter the ban phase?
Well, even beyond the teams, I think we have to talk about the strongest gods at this tournament. That Athena that we've seen a ton of, a god that's been super high prioed, and the Mammon, the newest god to SMITE, available in this tournament. Will she be played first off? Will she be banned? And where will we see her played? In that mid role or in that jungle role?
Couple junglers being banned away right off the bat, followed by the Baba Yaga. We've touched on the jungle matchup a bit, Mifflin. Expect to see some of those bans rolling through. Any surprises, though, in the first 6?
I'm surprised to see so many targeted bans immediately. Clearly, the Ferrymen have done their homework here. Apreel on that Mercury has been dominant, so getting him off of it, a great first step there for the Ferrymen. But this has left a lot of priority on the table. With Thoth off the board, thought maybe we'd go towards Cuckoo instead. Support priority from the Ferrymen. And I know, Hazer, you were thinking we'd maybe see something like an Aphrodite or even a Yamoja in that slot.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw Afro have so much priority in terms of bans at the last tournament. I thought we might see prio picks here from the SBL teams. Those bans must have come from somewhere. But the Sobek first pick, something that the EU teams have really valued. Ganesh gone for silence. Maybe this is a takeaway, prevent him getting that. And Deathwalker looks to lock in his solo lane pick straight away. The Osiris for the solo lane.
Locked in Osiris. Bobby, does that tell you anything right off the rip here in Osiris for Deathwalker?
Osiris just wanted to, not Osiris. Deathwalker wanted to get his god early. He wants to lock in this Osiris, which is a god we saw him dominate lanes with. Baskin said it in the interview that when he got this Osiris, he got that Bellona, he was not losing lane, and he rarely puts himself out of position.
Really good at dominating the lane on this character. Has high sustain, high DPS. One of the most recent changes to Osiris, allowing that first ability to go through minions and also hit enemy gods, just makes it really difficult to find any sort of footing up against him. And then also that Death's Embrace interaction we were talking about a little bit earlier really brings a lot of nuance to some of those late game Fire Giant dances.
Yeah, absolutely. This build for Deathwalker is something I want to touch on as well. He goes Death's Toll into the Phalanx, into Executioner normally. He goes an aggressive build and then picks up a cloak after that. And I'm interested because the Maman's open here and the Ferryman could opt to pick that up to disrupt that build in the solo lane. No Maman so far. It looks like it's going to be Chernobog locked in and Vulcan to follow.
And with that Maman not being available now, or still being available, not picked, it seems like we're going for away from that god, and it's more so try to get these gods that the Scarabs are comfortable with and that the Ferrymen are comfortable with. Maybe not as much on the Maman.
Vulcan picked up for the Styx Ferrymen as well. Worlds Paul has arrived as well. Paul, one of the most storied players when it comes to the world stage. And Mifflin, they're going to give him a pick that we've seen plenty of plays on in the Vulcan. Is that counterable from the current standpoint in your mind with what the Solar Scarabs have left?
I'm actually concerned about this Vulcan pick, even just looking at Osiris on his own. The ability for Osiris to just stick to this god and make it miserable to exist, utilizing Tether for all that damage mitigation. Vulcan's got a knock-up, but aside from that, it's peel with damage, and good luck doing that when Deathwalker's on you.
I think what's sticking out for them with this Vulcan pick is that possibility of building that Mirrodin. That's something that really stuck out in that last tournament, is we want to see Mirrodin mid lane mages. The Thoth is already gone. The somewhat weird thing is no Cuckoo over the Vulcan, which is something that was super high prioed, but Vulcan's still a very good Mirrodin character, has a very good build path in the meta.
Pwash for the Solar Scarabs. Hazer, are the eyebrows raised a bit for the SEC team?
I mean, we saw this a few times for Zyrhoes in the tournament, and I feel like it never looked particularly good, but he's gone back to it. He loves this god. He likes to play for the late game and kind of sit in the back line, and when he's dived, they drop that ult to kind of zone out the rest of the team and go on the frontliner. So that might be their plan here. They're going to have Deathwalker maybe solo zone and the Aplash there to kill enemy frontliners. They're going to target out the Sobek. He plucks in, misses the pluck, or the pluck is beads. You've got an Aplash, and that is a lot of damage to deal with for the Croc.
Anything obvious in your mind, Miff, to take away here for either team, or maybe now that we see them, are you agreeing with the movement that these teams have made in the second ban phase?
First off, astounded by how quickly these P's and B's are moving.
I know.
I mean, at the world stage, usually use the entirety of the bank time. Ferryman finally starting to dip into theirs. I think continuing down the jungle target bans path is pretty decent. I'd probably look towards something like Susano. Apreel's had a lot of success on that pick. Perhaps that's the direction the Ferrymen go. Instead, take away a core of CC, Fear No Evil, the god of ultimates there, Hun Bots on the ban column. Makes a lot of sense to me.
And with a few of these junglers already gone, do the Scarabs kind of look for this jungle pick here, or do they give Apreel that last pick, that counter pick? And there's still a few more junglers that are available. The Susano that you talked about, Rat's another one that we've seen a lot of success with, Thor is another one. But before then, Fafnir locked in, which is something we didn't even see last tournament like at all.
What's the value here in the Fafnir, Hazer?
Well, it's the only other god Silence has played, apart from Ganesh and Sobek, which are both gods. So he goes towards the Fafnir. Maybe this is the limit of his god pool. Maybe he's got 3. I'm interested to see if we can maybe see an auto-attack jungler here to take advantage of this Fafnir as well. Mercury off the table, so it'll be interesting to see if there's anything left for April to go down into. I do think we might see the Susano out here again, though. That is a god that he tends to go towards whenever this Mercury is taken away, which is pretty often.
And there's plenty of auto-attackers already on the side of the Solar Scarabs. Osiris, Hachiman, both going to benefit from Coerce. And then the Heavenly Banner on top of that really does boost the Solar Scarabs' ability to just absolutely run through neutral objectives. Secure advantage as it stands, perhaps maybe a little bit up to debate. Opwash, Corpse Explosion, of course, incredibly powerful, but Earthshaker on the other side from Vulcan means you probably got to deal with him before you look towards those objectives.
There's Worlds Paul. There's also Worlds God Pool Cyno. Remember last year the Thanatos took over Worlds on the run into the Grand Finals. Still waiting for that man's pick. Bobby, what jumps out?
And it's impossible to pick what Cyno's going to be going towards before you actually see him lock something in. We've seen E-sets from him. We've seen some Hunters. He will go for almost any single class in the game. He just needs to find that first god, the god that he starts finding success with. And the Thor, as the god he's hovered, it provides a lot of just global possibilities. And it's one of those few gods with how such little early game the Styx Ferrymen comp has. It gives them some semblance of that early game.
And with Thor, Rat, and Susano being the only standards available, Rat, of course, recently, I believe putting up maybe a 10% win rate at the last land.
It wasn't good.
Probably not something these teams are considering right now. That Susano, solidly within the God Pool of April, brings a little bit more initiation, which is something you generally lack when you pick up a Fafnir on your team. It's not as consistent. Single target CC, of course, valuable, but you got to burn beads first. Having anyone else that can start up that fight would go a long way for the Scarabs.
Go ahead, Hazer.
Another really powerful thing about this Thor is it can punish the solo lane. We saw this a lot in the tournament coming in, the qualification tournament. Thor's looking for an early gank in solo. Deathwalker has been running it down, pressure non-stop. And with the Wukong, you can get that CC chain and kill him in a burst combo before he has too much prot online. And the Susano locked in for April. We all knew it was coming, and we'll have to see what he can do with it.
In a very selfish way, I'm happy to see the Thor. I've always said that one of the best gods as far as in-venue audio is Thor. When the Anvil of Dawn comes crashing down, there's not much like it. And so fans here in venue, get ready for some of that this game from the Styx Ferrymen jungler. We now get the teams locked in here. Inbound, were there any surprises, or was this about expectation as far as, get the nerves off, get into the tournament, not revealing anything too soon?
I mean, the only thing that sticks out to me is, where is the Mammon? Absolutely no Mammon pick, no Mammon ban, no prio at all. Is this a specific thing to these teams, or is it something that we're going to see extend through the entire tournament? I mean, outside of that, Osiris and Hachiman, high prioed. Deathwalker wants this Osiris, and Echrome really wants the Hachiman. Hazer said there's been 5 games out of his 6 in the last qualifiers where he went towards his Hachiman. It's incredible that he's still able to get it.
What does the gameplay in your mind look like, the power curve here, Myth? I want to start with the Solar Scarabs, though, because it's the underdog team in quarterfinal number 1 going up against the number 1 seed Styx Ferrymen. What is this composition built to do?
It's late game, and that's been the Solar Scarabs' MO for as long as they've been a team. I look at this squad and I see maybe slight potential to get aggressive in the Soul lane if Susano and Osiris are stacked on top of each other. You've got really high 2v2 there. Otherwise, Opwash can be farming up for the most part, controlling mid camps relatively well. Fafnir takes a whole lot of time before he's really finding the full value of his ultimate. And then even Hachiman, we talk about him as decent bully, but mostly locked in for his safety.
Hazer, what are you looking at?
I think the pressure situation here is really interesting, actually. I thought the Ferrymen might opt to try and get pressure in one of the side lanes. It looks like they've forgone it in both. Maybe they're opting to use that to give this Thor a chance to gank side lanes and punish over aggression. But right now it feels like the Scarabs are in the position they want to be in, which is they're going to be comfortable in the early game. They're going to get to the late where they love to play, and the Ferrymen also love to play there, obviously. These comps both aimed towards Fire Giant fights. I feel like both aimed towards 5v5s over on that solo side of the map.
Maybe the answer is just always jungle. So I'm going to strike that. No one's allowed to answer jungle. Inbound, some players to watch here, given their god picks in game 1.
I mean, the one that instantly goes to me is that Chernobog. It's a god that has gotten a lot of nerfs recently, but Cyclone has always piloted better than anyone else that we've actually seen play it. And when it gets to those late game team fights, as Paul said, that's the point we're going towards. Who's going to be able to match this Chernobog? Where's Chernobog going to be going? Is he going to be grouping as much? What's kind of Cyclone's plan?
We can only ask questions for so long until we get some answers. Let's delay no further. The SMITE World Championship starts right now.
Thanks so much, Dave, and the rest of the desk. It's Goran, it's Shelly. First off, excited to be back here in Arlington, and of course to watch the Ferrymen and the Scarabs and see how this game one is going to break down. And I'm going to touch a little bit on what the desk was talking about there towards the very end. But looking towards this Chernobog, looking at maybe some of the pressure in these side lanes, I mean, that's going to be a really huge deal to try and keep some of that capability up if you're the Ferrymen to not fall behind, or if you're the Scarabs to fight some of what they were losing last year.
I mean, that's something I wanted to dive into previously just because of the fact that we haven't seen the Styx Ferrymen play in such a long time, right? It's been essentially months. I was curious as to how they would pilot this meta. I was curious as to where they would go with picks and bans. Remember, this Chernobog back when they were top seed in the SPL was absolutely owning. Since then, hasn't been that high prio, but if you want anyone in the league on this Chernobog pick, I would not hate for CycloneSpin to get it, right? He knows how to ult in early on. He's okay with missing a bit of farm to fly into Pyromancer fights early on as well, and that can really help your team snowball a lead.
Now, we have seen, I'm going to call it egregious. We've seen some pretty egregious polls throughout the year. 79-21 in Twitch chat, favoring the Ferrymen. And a lot of this conversation, when it comes to the Scarabs, what we saw last week, early game, honestly, first 25 minutes, don't even look at them for a lot of those games. And then you get to that last team fight, and they turn things around, but that's what the Ferrymen like to play. That's where they like to get their hands dirty. But a lot of the conversation was around these junglers, and specifically around Cyno here, who's someone I'm going to keep my eye on. Do you think that, this Thor, first off, agree with Dave, love him and Vinny.
Right.
But double down, is he going to have the pressure to help offset a little bit? As actually Echrome getting a little low over and left. They want the chase Aror. You can see once the plug. Good body blocks by SMITE just to make sure nothing comes out. Delays first blood a little longer. They're not slowing down on the pressure.
No, I assume we're going to see sparks fly early on, whether that be for passive play or overextensions or just some early cringe ganks. Just pay attention to Apreel and pay attention to Cyno. They're going to head left, they're going to head right. Paul taking a lot of damage here. He has that Aegis held on to it. Smart player, never one to waste a relic, but that was getting close.
Yeah, this is a little dangerous zone for him. But this is the thing, so Vulcan, right? Third pick in, not something that's been on our minds for a little while. What is Paul gaining from having that pick in mid?
I think it's just something that he likes to go to. Insane burst damage. I call him a pseudo hunter when it comes to actually burning through objectives, because that turret is going to do exactly what you want, right? Just spray away, free DPS. You don't exactly need an auto attacker to pull a Pyromancer early. And of course, the burst. Paul has been on point hitting those Earthshakers. So I just think it's a pick that he's comfortable on. And of course, it can match that burst that Zyrhoes has on the outwash.
Usually a little bit of pressure around the side camps, and we see cooldown buff easily picked up by Cyno, shield buff easily secured by the Scarabs, trading out on those. But Charlie, and this maybe goes back to what the desk was asking, are you maybe surprised to see this 2 minutes in? I guess we're still level 3, right? Are we waiting for that level 5 mark for something big from a Thor?
I can tell you that's what Cyno's waiting for. Yeah, you better be waiting for Anvil of Dawn. Thor's ganks are not the greatest unless you have a great wall, right? If you can step behind someone, wall them off, then you have an opportunity. I think Apreel could get aggressive here, and with blue buffs coming through, that could be the first fight we see. Cyno's a little bit further behind just because Apreel's farming quicker. That's the nature of Susano. So much movement, so much burst damage. But Anvil of Dawn, that could be the opener.
That's such an iconic goal. Aegis used, you had mentioned Paul holding onto it really well earlier, used instantly when Apreel shows up in lane this time around. Maybe foregoing some of the pressure they would have had. Of course, you could tell who was here last year based on the totem chance, Shelly.
Oh, yeah.
And the Scarabs, we had talked about it, and maybe we should touch on it, right? Deathwalker, Baskin, this is something that was mentioned in the interviews. This is something that has been going back and forth. It feels like this is a huge lane, but as the desk had mentioned, Osiris with the pressure win, at least in the early game.
And that's what I would expect as well, right? But, I mean, Baskin loves to get pressure if he can, but the Wukong is not usually that god. He plays safe. He's incredibly safe, very difficult to gank, but not that brawler, not that bruiser that Deathwalker can be on the Osiris. I'm glad that we are finally seeing the Osiris back in the meta, because this is the in-your-face, dive the backline, unkillable mess that you expect from most solo laners. Remember, when we last saw the Ferrymen, it was Poseidon, it was Outwash, it was Raijin. Now we get to see Baskin on Wukong, Deathwalker on Osiris just absolutely scrapping. but with these plucks coming through, you got to pay attention to those beads as well. Remember, Paul just Aegis, but Cyno's got Anvil of Dawn. He can delete someone from the map if they don't have that CC immunity.
Well, Apreel's the one playing a little aggressive here. Ends up opting to fall back. Not a lot of mana to work with there for the Susano. But Aror, as you had mentioned, has been going for pluck after pluck, forcing the EI Jutsu from Echrome. That dash has been nice, safe. With ult, Echrome in theory is going to be just fine for a little while. But keeping your eyes, and specifically for me, watching over on Cyno. I mean, Trelly, this is a team that we've gotten so used to seeing work just so effortlessly well.
They're a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, they know exactly what they want to do. They've mentioned to themselves that they don't really think they do anything that special, which is wild. They haven't lost a set since October.
Man, it was Halloween? Maybe even earlier.
It was earlier. It was October
earlier than
13th.
Halloween. That's crazy. And at this point, we heard those player interviews, right? Why are the Ferrymen so good? Well, let's break it down. Do they make many mistakes? Not really. Is their positioning bad? No. Sure, they don't do any one thing fantastic. I think it's just the fundamentals, the basics, that they just don't survive on. And because of that, their team fight is deadly. They know how to play from behind. Remember, Aror, if we do see them get a little bit down in gold, they'll go for a wraparound play, something like that. But something to consider. Remember, silence on the Fafnir. He's got chain CC. Paul, he left base without beads, right? He's got the Aegis. He's worried about burst damage. Same with Cyno. If Silence hits a good hammer, that Draconic Transformation, you could keep this Vulcan in place for a solid 5 seconds if you chain everything together.
A little bit of damage thrown out towards Apreel. If Aror hits his pluck just a few seconds earlier, we're maybe having a different conversation for Silence. Baskin as well is rotated in, stun, beats, forced on Zyrhoes, and he's going for the chase. They're looking for a little bit more, and they're chasing him down, but now you've got Apreel, and Apreel comes in to turn that one around. 1-for-1 trade, but the first blood to the Scarabs. Now the Ferryman forced to run away. Baskin bird form gets him distance, and it should be enough of a disengage to walk away.
And make no mistake, that was much better for the Solar Scarabs. Aror plucking just to make sure that Baskin get out of trouble. CycloneSpin flies over, thinks he's going to help his team get first blood, ends up getting first blooded. Sure, Paul cleans up the kill, but look at that goal differential, Gore. That's the Solar Scarabs playing perfectly, even a man down. Cyclone flew over just to fall down. That is not the start you want if you're the Styx Ferrymen.
1,000 gold, but we've seen steady building is what can make a huge difference here. Speaking of builds, we've seen, I want to say like 3 different starts in solo lane. I'm going to bring us back over there, especially with a huge rotation from Baskin, like that Tiger Stun mattering. Seeing what Deathwalker's able to do, though. The Phalanx start up at the front. How do you feel about this for the Osiris?
Yeah, it seems like these auto attack solo laners have switched out the Berserker, switched out the Glad Shield. It ends up coming back later on in the build if you would like, but this Phalanx is just a great start for Osiris to be an absolute bully, and that's what he wants to do. Deathwalker ults in. Lord of the Afterlife, no fear. You think he was like, guys, I'm gonna need help once I ult in? I doubt he said a word. I think he ulted in just because of that confidence. Maybe a bit of the world stage swagger on him, but he's just unkillable at this moment. Paul used his ultimate to confirm Zyrhoes, and beads are down for 80 seconds. Now Cyno's got a target. Anvil of Dawn coming back up soon. Watch out for the outflash.
And you also got to talk about CycloneSpin, right? I mean, we Anvil of Dawn, we see how fast the Susano can be, but Cyclone can change the numbers game pretty much instantly at any time. So Echrome's going to have to be on point either with rotations or just presence all around. But you had mentioned it, beads that are down, not just in mid, but in duo. A little bit of a reset. Now 7 minutes in, Trelly. And we're still hovering, actually growing up to about, what, 1,500, 1,600 in favor of the Scarabs. And a lot of this is just that neutral farm, and it's surprising to see them have this much control, although the desk had mentioned a lot of lane pressure and everything like that, but realistically, in dual lane, it feels like we've seen CycloneSpin and Aror willing to push up. We see them willing to push up now to some of the neutral camps. But where are the Scarabs? I mean, why are they dominating this hard? Maybe because they're looking for fights where they can find it. Maybe because they're willing to contest these neutral objectives without really worrying about it.
I'll tell you where that gold lead is. Look at Apreel versus Cyno in the net worth charts. It'll tell you a tale. That's about 800 gold just in difference of the Susano versus the Thor. Sure, first blood goes into that a bit, but that's just superior farm. Cyno has not been on point with being able to match that level of presence. Of course, Thor is a little bit slower on the farm game, like we mentioned, but remember, CycloneSpin flew out. We even alluded to it. It was a bit of foreshadowing, I guess, about how he's not afraid to take these early ultimates. He's not afraid to miss a few waves. I was thinking more like level 12. I did not think it was going to be that early on that Cyclone flies through, especially losing his life in that gank. that gives Echrome a lot of space as well.
Apreel stun now
here we
on
go.
the Deathwalker. You need a little more damage. Baskin wants to chase him down. Knockup's good, but Somersault Cloud should counter it out. But is he going to chase? He goes for a leap from Deathwalker. Gets him out of there in time, and it's going to be just fine. Plus, they get the blue buff.
I am baffled. I was waiting for Cyno to dunk in. I guess he had low health, not enough to try and go in for the confirm. It seemed pretty easy, right? Somersault Cloud, I'll go first, and then you have Anvil of Dawn. It goes further. We'll easily confirm. But the rotation in from Zyrhoes, Silenced was there as well. The Styx Ferrymen said, even if you had a guaranteed kill, which looking at Cyno's health and mana was not guaranteed, not worth it. We're already down a bit of gold. Let's play this one safe. So what seemed like a pretty good gank attempt and a blue buff invade ends up netting not too much. You lose Somersault Cloud, you lose Lord of the Afterlife if you're the Scarabs, and of course that Typhoon from Apreel. But we're back to the farm game.
2 levels in the jungle, though, and you've been highlighting that pretty well. That's where a lot of the lead is. But Charlie, it's getting to the point where it's almost 2,000. We're approaching 10 minutes, so you're feeling pretty confident if you're the Solar Scarabs. And that confidence has really been exuding through the jungle play. Like you said, going back to the farm game. Now we're hitting those level 12 marks, at least for mid, specifically for Paul. You had mentioned wanting to see CycloneSpin, or originally thinking he would start rotating around 12. With a death on board, do you think he's as willing to just let it fly?
I'm going to be honest with you, Gore. When I see a Chernobog in my games, I say, don't even rotate. Just chill. Eventually, it's going to be late game. You're going to hit level 20 before anyone because you're just going to split push, and then you can just diff everyone because you have more items. The Styx Ferrymen don't really play like that. If Cyclone gets real far behind, yeah, he'll just AFK farm. But at this point, they still feel like they can find engagements. They still feel strong, as they should. It's not that big of a differential. So yeah, I would not be shocked at all if Cyclone flew in, like even right now. There's nothing going on, and he could still fly in, and it wouldn't shock me.
That would shock me, if I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I'm going to see him be too aggressive. But I also am willing to admit that the Ferrymen are the team that most acceptable of taking their own deaths if it favors their team. I think we've maybe seen Cyno maybe at the top of that list, and right now taking a lot of damage. Good hammer gets him away from Apreel, but Baskin's taken some. Has the Somersault Cloud, so he doesn't feel too much pressure, but both of them knocked back to base. Right around the blue buff respawn. This is great pressure from the Scarabs.
Score, that was thin margins too. If that hammer gets knocked up, Cyno's toast. There is no beads. This man had Aegis. If his hammer's knocked up, you are absolutely falling down. But that's just gonna put Baskin even further behind. Now make no mistake, the Solar Scarabs played for pressure, right? That's why you grab the Osiris. Baskin is not picking the Wukong so he can win the 2v2. He's picking it so he can survive the 2v1 if Cyno wants to go left. We haven't seen Cyno go left because there's a Chernobog in that lane that got first blood. You're not going to fight over there. Aror gets plucks, that's great, but Cyclone is not bringing that much DPS. Not as much as Silence, not as much as Echrome. So Cyno's in a rough spot where he has to keep showing up to blue buff knowing it's probably not going to go well, but it's not like he can get active anywhere else except for mid lane. We saw one attempt on Zyrhoes' beads. Since then, those relics have been up the whole time.
Actually, mid was where I was looking mainly. Obwash Vulcan. Feels like Vulcan, a lot of follow-up. Obwash, a lot of follow-up in terms of damage. Now with the beacon spawning in theory, you're going to see some pressure. Right now it's Paul and Aror, Silenced Zyrhoes, but Apreel and Cyno hanging around in the jungle. Charlie, we've seen half and half. Sometimes solo lane rotates in. When you've got something like a Chernobog, in theory, you'd rotate in if a fight was going to break out. The Scarabs recognize they don't want, so they back away. See that one to the Ferryman. Despite getting the beacon, though, despite everything that's been going on this game, the Scarabs' lead continues to grow just a little bit further. Now 2,600 gold, 12 minutes in.
And again, it's not like the Styx Ferrymen love this, right? They're not hyped about it. They're not happy. Hold that thought. Cyno loses that. Aegis gets
knocked up. The damage is there, and Apreel has the chase down. Cyno gets to fall back. You've got Aror in an awkward spot with Apreel still here. You have to be careful, luckily. Dash gets him away, and it's another kill over to the Scarabs.
And Apreel does not make the same mistake twice. Last time, missed the knockup, could not catch that hammer. He said, this time I'm catching you out. The Aegis did nothing. Cyno falls down. This Susano is making it all happen on the world stage. Apreel is going to be a growing threat. Already has the Jotuns, the Hydras as well. Why not get some DPS towards Paul?
Brings him down to half, forces the Aegis as well. Isn't going to chase down any further. Shelly, for a team that seeded the beacon just a minute ago, they do not seem to care about the pressure anywhere else. They'll throw it down.
Yep.
Now you've pulled Aegis on both Cyno and Paul. It feels like, you know, Burst has to come to the conversation with Paul. Ult has to come to the conversation with Cyno, but now it feels like a lot of that utility isn't there. You had mentioned he's going to go up, dunks down onto Deathwalker, has the spin, but do they have the damage to get anything done? He's just walking out of there, does not care about anything thrown his way, and he gets the blue.
Wow, the ult hit, believe me, I saw it, but it didn't look like it. The health bar didn't, but the Pyromancer, this is going to be absolutely free here, and that is exactly what the Vulcan brings. I told you, it's like a pseudo ADC. You drop the turret, if no one kills it, plenty of DPS, and that is where the Styx Ferrymen can succeed. These grouped up early on objective pulls. I still think the Scarabs are fine with that, right? They step forward, they are trying to put Baskin behind, they are trying to put Deathwalker ahead. They've been successful on both fronts, but this Runic Bomb comes into conversation now. Do you group up, drop it on a tier 1 and just give your team that extra boon of gold? Do you save it for a Fire Giant? Many of opportunities here for the Ferrymen.
Do you think it's even worthwhile? Because we usually see them held for like tier 2s or for the FGs, but you're down 2,500, and that's after getting the Pyro. Is it worthwhile going for it if you have that opportunity, dropping it on something like the tier 1?
All right, hold on. I got to wrap my head around this one. SMITEPro upgraded the Phantom Shell already. It's just for Cyno's wall. Maybe, I mean, it can absolutely destroy Zyrhoes. It can absolutely destroy Echrome. That's a lot of gold put into a Phantom Shell for a wall that is going to have to be placed perfectly. Cyno can do it, let's be honest. One of the more talented Thor players. He can definitely place one of those walls, but already getting the Phantom Shell, it's a bit puzzling to me.
Maybe some nightmares from last week. We saw some really good Thor walls last week, locking people down. But you had mentioned maybe early pressure, rotation, at least vision coverage right now for the Ferrymen on the left side of the jungle. Yeah, with Paul standing over here.
They're on a ward, though.
It's just the question of whether or not they want to start. Auror's been spotted, turret dropped, Gold Fury.
Nah.
Immediately leashed just because they recognize.
That was a damage check.
It's a heat check.
Exactly. They're like, hey, you guys, what would you do if I dropped a turret on gold? And they said, we could probably go check it. And they're like, all right, cool. We were just checking. we'll try it again in a couple minutes once we get the ward coverage down. Although, this build coming online nicely. Zyrhoes, I assume, has some gold in the pocket. Doesn't quite have that staff of Mirrodin. But if you want to talk about burst potential, Paul's got it in spades. If Zyrhoes can't go back to base, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to, Gold Fury started up.
Yeah, heat check once, now come over. CycloneSpin joins. Zyrhoes is right here, but the ult secures, and Gold Fury to the Ferryman. Now Cyno in the sky, wants to come dunking down. Zyrhoes is the target, and Zyrhoes is who they're chasing down. Shell to get some of that health, and knockup from apreel keeps him alive a little bit longer, but Cyno does what's needed, gets the kill, and they're turning it 1-for-1. Now Aror can't escape, can't survive, and the Scarabs keep doubled up and look for more apreel. Not willing to chase it under the tier 1.
They're coming,
but
though.
The Scarabs looking
Gotta stop his
good.
back.
Will they be able to find it? They stop Cyno's back. They're falling back, Charlie. They're playing cautiously. They get what they need.
They certainly do, but the gold is not looking too great for. It's still about 2,500, but the Solar Scarabs knew where they'd be able to find some chase down. If you use all that damage to try and go in for the confirmation, and more specifically, if you use all that damage on the outwash and you can't kill him quickly, that's when a problem's going to emerge. Zyrhoes did exactly what he needed to. Popped the relics, dropped his damage, and said, I'm gonna run around like a chicken with his head cut off. You guys, please follow up. And that's exactly what happened. Echrome comes in big. There's a beautiful mounted archery. And of course, apreel still an absolute menace on this Susano. Scaling is the word here, as far as I'm concerned. The Scarabs are fine with fighting right now. The Styx Ferrymen are still looking a little bit later down the road, right? They'll take their objectives, but if they could choose, they would not go for these fights.
But there's an end of that road, right? You can kick the can pretty far down, but eventually it's gotta, there's a reckoning that comes towards you. That's what the Scarabs are waiting for. They're waiting for that reckoning. Whether or not the Ferrymen are going to have that explosive turnaround, well, that's going to be the question for them. Second beacon goes the way of the Order team. And Shelly, neutral farm. I mean, I keep going back to it because admittedly that's where it is. We talked about it. Still 2 levels in the jungle. Now 2 levels in solo. You got a level lead in the duo lane. And you are starting to push not only, I guess 3,500 gold, right? Trying to find that 4,000 mark for the Scarabs. If you get, say, this Pyromancer that's spawning in relatively soon, or if you go for a Gold Fury once it's in just a few minutes, that's going to really help push you over that edge to open up those team fights.
Yeah, and as far as build power spikes go, the Solar Scarab just looking a lot cleaner. Deathwalker, 4 items to his name. Baskin has 2.5. Of course, gold in pocket. Yes, he should be able to get that full 3 pretty soon, but it's still very far behind apreel, though, taking a lot of damage. He's got the movement. Would a Thor ult come through? If Blink's available, wouldn't risk it. Cyno thinks better of it. But with that, look at Aror. No Gauntlet Thebes, that cloak not quite stacked up either. Silence is a 2-level deficit. These are the start of things. They're going to start to add up. But even so, the Styx Ferrymen feel confident going in for the Pyro.
Well, they've got Paul for the ult, but he drops it early.
Little late.
Scarabs steal that one away. They're getting the objective, and they're getting out.
Yeah, Paul a little bit early on that Earthshaker. Didn't quite have the damage he thought he did, and Zero said, hey, I'm going to drop Empty the Crypts. At the very least, some tick damage could come through, and that's exactly what happened. Silence picks up the Runic Bomb, and now both teams have one.
Paul put under pressure there in mid. And that's the thing, so, you know, we've talked a lot about the pressure in solo, and maybe we should, again, just because to clarify, it's now 3 levels for Deathwalker. 5,000 gold for the Scarabs. Sub 20 minutes, they knocked down another tier 1 in mid. So favorable map position. But Charlie, especially since you called it out, maybe we'll get to see some of it. We got to see an Executioner super early on for Deathwalker.
Yep.
Since then, he has felt unkillable. I think even in this moment, it kind of showcases how he's feeling. He's stepping up to the blue buff, full invade, only seeding because there are 2 people, and still able to cause a little bit of trouble. Does not steal it, but does cause some trouble for him. But how do you feel, like, you know, the Xe early on, the fact that he's so tanky, like, how is this build shaping out for him, especially going into these late game fights?
This is the DW special, man. He just likes chopping it up. Bellona, Osiris throws the early Executioner in, just upgrades it whenever he can, and then just absolutely W keys. It's going to be a little bit difficult later on when CycloneSpin gets active to a bit more crit. At the moment, it's just that fail not, but right now, yeah, unkillable. That is the word I would use because it's correct. Even if they could lock him down, the Styx Ferrymen, that is, beads available, Lord of the Afterlife available, has not needed to use them because who's trying to kill the level 19 Osiris? It's gonna catch up, right? He can't be unkillable forever. But if the Solar Scarabs can just end the game before that point gets around, right, before those power spikes are reached, then yeah, Deathwalker's not gonna care. First to 20, actually, I think Echrome beat him by a small margin. Either way, Protector of the Jungle for Apreel, Echrome's level 20, Deathwalker's level 20. Starter items will be upgraded very shortly.
Yeah, those first 3 level 20s being on the opposite side. I mean, Ferrymen, it's not often we get to see them trail and farm. And admittedly, last week, one of the weakest points of the game for the Scarabs was their early game. And while it's not necessarily explosive, right, 6 kills on the board total, they have done an excellent job of just farming. I mean, look at that. It is a steady, steady slope down in their favor. And Jelly, at this point, you're looking towards Fury, which is up, and I think Echrome starting to get a little bit of damage. And there's not going to be a response.
Ferryman on fire.
Like you said, fire. Deathwalker spots this out immediately, so they know what's going on, but you've got the burst. Paul is going to be essential for this one. Deathwalker goes in. All he wants to do is disrupt. Stun onto 2. Relics on Paul, and he's looking for more damage. There's the ult. Ferrymen get themselves the fire, but can they win the fight?
No,
the
they
chase
cannot.
is going too well for the Scarabs. 2 already gone. Apreel looking great. Baskin trying to escape, and it's what Wukong does best, but it's just not happening for him here. Triple for Apreel on the big stage.
They didn't even go for the Oni Fiori Gore. The Scarabs were onto that play immediately. Paul just trying to survive, trying to get his burst damage off, and sure, the Styx Ferrymen confirm the objective. They've got Fire Giant on 2, but the Solar Scarabs are running it down mid.
Got the pressure on tier 2. Don't know if they're going to do much. Cyno backs to base. Now, Charlie, this is perfect opportunity. Back, Oracles, Fury, Golden Pocket. You've essentially nullified that Fire Giant play, but you've also kind of given yourself limited options to do after this Fury. Next few minutes for the Scarabs, what do you want to see him do?
As far as I'm concerned, the Styx Ferrymen did that to sort of stem the bleeding, right? Now, the Scarabs can't get Fire Giant for 5 minutes. They're going to stall. They're going to slow this game down. But the Solar Scarabs have such a lead. They've got Oni Fury. Titans will be marching very shortly. I want them to push as if they have the Fire Giant. I don't care if you don't have the buff. You have more items. You have more tank stats. You have more dive ability. Yeah, it's about time the Solar Scarab group up as 5 and start getting these towers down. No runic bombs in play currently, but spawning in here shortly already. The Ferrymen are here. Let's see how much Deathwalker takes.
Oh my
Look
God.
at a lot.
This time they're finally chasing him down. They finally got what they needed. 100 to 0. Deathwalker caught out at the Pyro, now pulled by the Ferrymen. Trying to cut down some of that 6,000 gold lead the Scarabs have, and they'll bring it back into a manageable position. But Trelly, looking at the map, Beacon is where the Ferrymen opt to turn their attention. They don't have any tier 1s to run to. No defensive havens right there in the middle of the map. Now, line of scrimmage knocked further back. Now Titan's going to be spawning in left. If you want to see him push, especially with no worry of Fire Giant,
this might be the time.
Yeah, Deathwalker made a mistake there. You can't step up that far. And again, the tank stats, he was unkillable until I said Cyclone was going to get some more crit online. The second Deathbringers gets online, that health bar just started getting absolutely melted. Just a wall. That's all it really was. The wall from Cyno into the pluck from Aror. This build needs a little bit more tank stats. It's like a Mantle of Discord or a Spirit Robe coming in later. I don't think Deathwalker's going to make that mistake again. Wait for the team until you group up. But the Ferrymen, they've shown they still have some legs in this fight. They can step forward. They can look for a pick if you're overextended.
We talked earlier and mentioned a lot of the gold lead, just in general, the experience lead. We leaned heavily on it, and admittedly, you only hit 20 once, and then you're locked there forever. Everybody's caught up, 18 to 18 for the supports. They're the only ones who haven't hit 20 just yet. But it is 5-0-2, 100% kill participation for apreel. This Susano has been just absolutely above right now, and maybe looking to show it. Teleports in, knock up good on the Paul, but the Aegis buys some time, and they finally shut him down. The turnaround is what they needed. Now Cyno goes in, dunk is good, but you've got this field of death laid out in front of you. Have to play cautiously, have to play carefully. Cyno apparently didn't get that memo, instead goes in a 2v3. Good damage. Again, playing it safe. Zyrhoes isolated, locked down by his team, and one more kill through an alternate timeline. Great wall just to secure it, and suddenly we're looking at a much closer game.
Wow, I mean, that was thin margins as well. apreel held the Typhoon so close, but the Aegis still connects there for Paul. He gets to live to see another day. And then just turn around, hits him with the Earthshaker and the backfire. Notably, Paul still had alternate timeline. Even if apreel did a 5-0 shutdown for timeline, that's never worth it. But the timeline stands tall. The Ferrymen are pushing up left, and they have a full health Titan helping them out with their siege. I mean, I'm going for the Phoenix here. You got plenty of time, but apreel did spawn back in, so yeah, maybe you grab the tier 2 and back it up. You forget, the Scarabs have been winning this whole game just by nature of gold.
That Fire Giant, they still had it on 2 for that push. Falls off now, so a minute for that respawn. Around the same we're looking at for a Primal Fury, and just a little after for a Pyromancer. A lot coming up. And it's all going to be at once, Trelly. But the pressure, I mean, the willingness right now for the Ferrymen to step up to the objectives has been entirely around Paul's ult. And that diamond is full. His relics aren't in the best position, but it does feel, especially since we have a minute to play with, that he is the one to target if you're the Scarabs.
Yeah, I think apreel recognized the mistake of, oh, I can't just 100 to 0 anymore. I can't just eat that Earthshaker anymore. They're going to have to play this fight a little bit differently, but look what happened in the meantime. That gold lead is gone. The Ferrymen have evened out this game. Fire Giant spawning in here shortly. Aror already looking to get some ward coverage down and just be a mobile ward for his team. Hey, the Scarabs aren't here just yet, but this is where CycloneSpin could really make a difference. Head over to left, get some split push, pull someone over. That Phoenix is wide open. That's where the Chernobog can be annoying, but the Ferrymen feel better with Cyclone nearby. They could always go for a Fire Giant pull. Remember, the burst is still disgusting from Paul.
Chase down, right, with CycloneSpin. Is that something you want to see him use the ult for? I mean, most of the time, I'm used to the fact that he should be, in theory, over at that tier 2 line, trying to knock down minions, and using that to join the fight a little bit later. But do you like the idea of maybe trying to find some of that burst early and use that for a potential chase down? Use it maybe as an escape? Is there a lot of dive to threaten specifically Cyclone?
As far as I'm concerned, Cyclone should hold on to the ult until someone gets weak. That's usually what happens. Oh, there we go, let's go. Everyone pops their ults, everyone begins to chase. Even if you don't go on that low health target, you've created a slow, you've given vision to your whole team, and you reset your cooldowns. All beneficial, so I don't want Cyclone being the first one in just about ever, unless it's a targeted 1v1 versus Echrome, where he's going to win just about every time. Crit versus Kins, Echrome did not build to 1v1 CycloneSpin.
Pyromancer is going to be the first heat check. Of course, ward game right now, Trelly, is definitely important. I see a whole string of Ferryman wards on their side to make sure that they can cover up any deep vision that the Scarabs has thrown down. Objectives are so awkward when you have Puch specifically. It feels like he can create that huge no-play zone, but all it takes is Paul aiming just a little carefully, and suddenly things fall apart. Do you like the Scarabs being the ones to kind of vibe check the Pyromancer? Do you think that, especially since they just lost a massive chunk of their lead, in fact, all of it, should they maybe let off the gas pedal a little?
As far as I'm concerned, this is an even game. I don't mind either team going in for a heat check, right? Yeah, go in for see if you can find some damage, see if you can find some poke, but No team feeling too confident. That's what I've been waiting for, though. Cyno has the ability to set up a pluck for Aror every single time. He can pull beads without committing his body like a pluck, and he can just half health any carry. If he finds one of those walls, don't think you want to pluck in silence, though. As you can see, Aror took much more than the Fafnir. That's the one guy you don't want to be dishing into your team. His escape's just too far.
Yeah, I mean, Deathwalker, and you had mentioned this, but that crit is working overtime right now for Cyclone. It just shreds that Osiris.
I didn't even realize they gave him both bombs. Now I really want to see him split push. If someone heads over, he flies in, you win the 4v5. And if they don't,
free Phoenix.
You drop 2 bombs on Phoenix and a free Phoenix, exactly. And you can still fly in whenever you want.
Yeah, that part doesn't disappear. It's so, I guess, in contrast to last week, right? Deathwalker just looked so unkillable in so many of the games, especially as the Osiris. Do you want, I mean, we can see the build, right? It's not planned as of right now, but is it worth trying to go for a Spectral? I know last week we were even talking, like, it feels bad to have to go for it.
Right.
But if Cyclone's smacking you down like this, sometimes you just gotta bite the bullet.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna come through. I think Silence is gonna pick it up because there's no way. Like, you already have your breastplate. I assume that Spectral just started, which means it's not gonna be done for quite some time. But no, Deathwalker is committed. This is an expensive build he's went for. I cannot see him selling any of these items except maybe the Xe if he feels like, hey, I'm way too squishy at this point. I need that extra defense, but not something Deathwalker likes to do. He still likes to 1v1 junglers. He likes to find Paul and chop through him with the Xe. It's not going to happen at this point, but we have stalled so long that Enhanced Fire Giant is spawning in here in 8 seconds. Not a single attempt at the game, and that is the benefit of, well, I was going to say even, the Styx Ferrymen just pulled ahead naturally at this point because of being all across the map. The Solar Scarabs, though, what's their opening, right? They've got the hammer from Silence, they've got a pull from Apreel, whereas I cannot stress enough how easy the Thor wall is to just break this fight wide open.
Baskin is the one who's hovering up a little further than everybody else. Cyno goes for the wall, doesn't get the double tap though. And I thought Deathwalker showing himself in left. Yes, he has teleport, maybe that's gonna be the opening. And there's a little scuffle in the Fire Giant pit. The Ferryman not willing to lock it down. You had mentioned it, 1 Fire Giant already on the board. Now Enhanced is what we're waiting for. Pyromancer, it's gonna be coming back in a little under 2 minutes. There's a Primal Fury on the other side. Risk to try and go for that. But with the beacon coming up, now the heat check comes through. Ferrymen are exactly where you need to be. They might have this one just absolutely covered. Silence, Deathwalker trying to get in. It's a slow walk for the Scarabs, and it looks like they're turning around. They're looking for Baskin, but Cyno goes in, Zyrhoes, and a little bit of danger in the back. Baskin opting to chase down over the wall, forces Deathwalker's lead. Now, you've just got this, I mean, distraught immediately into the backline to force apreel and Zyrhoes back, and now you've got 5 with Enhanced.
Gore, I gotta wipe off the glasses I'm not wearing for a second. Why was that the most free Enhanced Fire Giant we've ever seen? It just seems like the Scarabs, like, they're not gonna do it, and the Ferrymen are like, we sure are. We can just go in, pull, get the burst immediately. No relics used except for the Bracer and, of course, Baskin's Blink, but look at the relics on the side of the Scarabs. Aegis is down for Zyrhoes. He just got his alternate timeline back up, but he's not gonna feel too confident if that Earthshaker comes back, and guess what? It just came off cooldown, not to mention Cyclone used both Runic Bombs, so it's not going to be easy to grab this Phoenix.
Yeah, 1 stun. Paul can find an ult that connects on the Echrome or Zyrhoes, maybe Apreel. It could change the pace of this game. And Trelly, I'm happy to see they're falling back, right? Some golden hand, 3,200 right now for Aror. So a lot to buy and a lot to do. But we got to look in on their aggression, how well they can break into the Phoenix, but more importantly, how the Scarabs can hold on, because this is where we've seen them turn a lot of these games around, is this late game into a Phoenix dive, forcing a team to make mistakes under their Titan.
And this is where I think the Ferrymen have a lot of options as well, right? They can split up, and I think that's entirely possible. Send Baskin, send Cyno. You have Enhanced Fire Giant. Any one of the Ferrymen besides Aror could solo a Phoenix in seconds, right? That's the benefit of this buff. You still, if it's a 2v2, Cyclone can join them over on right. The one thing I don't want to see is a full 5v5 in left lane, and that is something the Ferrymen love to do. They feel confident as a team. Sure, you got 5 bodies, so you feel like your fight is much better, but spreading the Solar Scarabs thin, trying to weasel out the people with no relics, try to get some CC onto Zyrhoes or onto Apreel. I think that's the best way to play this. But so far, the Ferrymen, they're going slow. Only about 2 minutes left on this power play. They haven't done much with it, but with Enhanced Fire Giant, I guess you can take your time.
I think I just saw 3 potions of power. I see an elixir held onto by CycloneSpin. That's where the gold is gone. It was a massive lead for the Scarabs, but now 33 minutes in and only 2 kills down for the Ferrymen. They've got almost 9,000 gold in their pockets. Charlie, you knock down the tier 2 and right, you eclipse that 10K, maybe you have your opening.
And let me be clear, we have not seen CycloneSpin auto attack Deathwalker since Dominance has been purchased, and the 3K pot has still not been purchased. Right? We saw him get shredded before. That was pre-Mantle of Discord, but Dominance and the Elixir of Power and Enhanced Fire Giant, that's going to eclipse all of that. This Chernobog is going to be absolutely swinging. They haven't had to fight though, right? The Ferrymen have been playing this one slow. A minute left. I still think you send Cyno mid. I prefer right lane, but with the tier 2, it looks like they're going in for the all-out on left.
Well, they've got the knock-up. Silence taking a surprising amount of damage. Knock the Phoenix down in just a few autos. Now you can pivot over towards the mid lane. Do you see him go in? Do you see him dive? Or do you see the Scarabs? Especially, I mean, Zyrhoes, ult available, right? How well is their defense going to go?
Oh, he's going up.
He's up in the air, looking and trying to find it. Gets a stun onto apreel, looking for the 1v1, but the teleport's a little bit better. Wall will not lock him away, but that knocks him back to base, opens up a little damage on the Phoenix. Zyrhoes drops the ult, forces the Ferryman to fall back, play it safe for a few more seconds.
And that's what I expected from the left lane, right? The Scarabs didn't even defend left lane. They essentially watched everyone walk forward. Some relics are down now in the Styx Ferrymen. They've got a little bit more time left on this buff. They want to step forward. They want one more Phoenix if they can, but lots of ults available.
Baskin into the back, stun immediately onto Echrome, trying to make him uncomfortable. Aror disrupting the front line, and Deathwalker gets knocked down to his deathbed and is slowly running away. Silence taken down. Baskin doing everything he can in his power, and he's got the rest of the team to back him up and do what they need. 3 already knocked down on the Scarabs. The Ferrymen looking at the Titan, doing everything in their power to control this. Pluck onto Deathwalker, and with the damage they have, Trelly with 4 already gone. They're gonna march into the Titan room, and they're gonna take game number 1.
They're gonna play this one slow. Zyrhoes has some burst damage. Look at these low health bars, Gore. This might not be as easy as you think. Zyrhoes has some damage. He needs the 5 kills, though. He doesn't have any kills yet.
He's trying to hold it. You need something big. No defense. You can root for it as much as you want, but he's not able to find it. Game 1 to the Ferrymen.
Wow, and that was a dominant performance from the Scarabs early on. The Styx Ferrymen looked a bit shaky. Remember, we haven't seen them play on this stage for months. It's been a while, but once they got their bearings down, once they understood their burst, they just stepped up and played objectives better. A free enhanced fire giant in a pretty much even game, that can't happen in game number 2.
Yeah, it was such a wide opening as well, right? And we saw, you know, last week, watching Scarabs games, where was their opening? It was Deathwalker. And it felt like walking into 4 and not having to stress about anything. This time around, and we saw it, he walks up, Cyclone just says, no, man, like, you can't do that, and punishes him. So is it a build thing? Is it a playstyle thing? What needs to change for the Scarabs if you're looking towards game 2?
Deathwalker can't die like that if the whole team is grouped up. He was by himself. He had been unkillable for the first 20 minutes. Why not just, you know, death check a Pyromancer and see if you're good? He wasn't. He learned immediately, but it didn't matter after that. The Runic Bombs added up, the Fire Giants fights added up, and the Ferrymen had just unlimited confidence for the rest of that game.
Well, the Ferrymen, they strike first this time, but it takes them a little while to get there. We'll see how game 2 is going to shake out and what the Scarabs have to answer back right after this break.
And we are back with our first quarterfinal of the SMITE World Championships here in Season 10. Appreciate everyone's patience. Obviously a bit longer than a 5-minute break there after game number 1, but it is all fixed, it is all good, and we will be getting right into game 2 here very, very shortly once we load into picks and bans. So I appreciate everyone's patience, but we are good to go to move into game number 2. Myth inbound and Hazer still with me. Myth, I don't know if you remember, but during my casting days many moons ago. Remember?
Casted?
I did. I dabbled in it. I had a little bit of time during that break to drink coffee, which is always a very dangerous thing. I haven't eaten a lot today, so
you brought it with you.
I'm real jazzed up right now to get into game 2. Let's remind ourselves, though, of what happened in game 1, because it was a game where Hazer, the Solar Scarabs, come out swinging, but it's ultimately the Styx Ferrymen taking the first game.
Yeah, absolutely. An early game led by Apreel and Deathwalker. Really, they get off to a great start, 5-0 on the Susano jungle. But it just seemed like late game, the Ferrymen had a better game plan, had a bit of patience, I suppose. They waited for the right fights to come to them rather than forcing things. And eventually, they just seemed to get the better of the Scarabs in the late game, Bobby.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right on the head, because the early game of the Scarabs was really good. Totems were going hugely in Deathwalker's favor. Apreel was playing phenomenal also. And even in mid lane, where we expect Paul to kind of slowly get ahead of everyone, Zyrhoes was basically even. But when it got to that late game, unfortunately, it didn't seem like the Scarabs wanted to pull the trigger on these objectives. Yes, they would be standing around them, but the Fafnir would just wait for that transformation until the fight had already started. We talked a little bit about the Fafnir already. If you're playing the Fafnir, when it gets to those late game fights, they're decided so quickly. You have to be in the dragon form before those fights start, and you have to be the ones playing on the front foot.
But it's the Ferrymen that dictated the majority of those engagements. Remember, sure, the Scarabs maybe had opportunities to pull objectives, but the Ferrymen were on top of them on cooldown. I thought the 5-man grouping for the Ferrymen was just a pace that the Scarabs weren't quite capable of keeping up with. Sure, in the micro play, we could argue Apreel, of course, getting a little bit more involved on map than Cyno did throughout the early, which I think plays into what you were saying, Bobby, where Paul wasn't really allowed to be as aggressive as we would have expected because his Aegis was on cooldown the entirety of this game. Susano just constantly on the center of the map. But otherwise, it's the grouping that really impressed me from the Ferrymen. 5 stacked on Gold Fury, 5 stacked on Pyromancer, and it felt like the Scarabs were slowly trying to catch themselves back up.
Yeah, we saw as early as that first blood rotation. We saw Wukong and Chernobog diving in Apwash super early on in the game. They end up losing first blood for that. The Bog goes down first. But that showed the game plan for the Ferrymen in that one. And let's see if they continue with that.
Like I said, the coffee starting to course through my veins a bit. So let's get right into picks and pans for game number 2 between the Ferrymen and the Solar Scarabs. Are there any obvious adaptations in your mind, Mifflin, from game 1 moving into game 2?
I don't think the Ferrymen want that Susano on the other side anymore. That was a clear just win condition for the Solar Scarabs. Set pace early, dominated team fights in the mid, and transitioned relatively well into the late game, barring one catastrophic failure where Paul just slams everyone with the Earthshaker.
And that Susano pick that you're talking about wasn't even prioed. That was a bottom pick that they could have gotten rid of. I'm more focusing on the supports in this early portion. Lock in this Sobek. This Sobek has been so good, even back in qualifiers. There was a lot of stuff that Aror was able to do with this Sobek, and part of the reason they were really able to win those late games is because it gives you this free engage. That Fafnir doesn't really have that. I really like the Sobek here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Sobek will be the pick we see for the Scarabs. Was taken away last time by the Ferrymen in that first pick slot. This time they swap sides. I'm expecting to see it mirrored, but I do not think we'll see Aror copy what went on from SMITE there, and the Fafnir is something I don't think we'll see repeated.
I want to ask a high-level question here. Really, anyone who's feeling confident can jump
Hazer.
in.
He's the smartest one.
Toph picked first overall here. Maybe this lends itself to an answer. Remember, during the Scarabs video that we saw during that first break, talked about their play style. Ferrymen like to go a little bit later. They were happy to match up against that.
Did Zapman get an industry plant in here? What's going on?
Zapman in the crowd. Is there any hope for either of these two teams? Is there any desire for either of these two teams to pick faster, more run it down, knowing that their opponents don't want to play that way?
I'm not sure. I feel like the Scarabs are encouraged not to go towards that now because they won the early game, right? And they weren't able to convert it. Their late game comp was not good enough. Their engage wasn't strong enough, and they got punished by the Ferrymen. So now I think they're less likely to continue with pressure, especially when you're on elimination point. I really feel like it's difficult to run a game down when you're facing elimination from the bracket, Bobby.
Yeah, and it's a difficult thing to do also, to be able to play that early game portion. So I don't mind going for this more later game comp. Yes, they only have one character so far. They have this Thoth. But they didn't play for that early game in mid either. They played for the early game kind of in the side lane. Yes, Hachi not really the greatest early game, but Osiris is the one that I'm really focusing on. Deathwalker gets it again. This was a matchup that Baskin picked that Wukong into, and we've seen this matchup way too many times where Wukong doesn't really do anything in it. He plays for that late game, and I think that's all really Baskin cares about. I don't mind the Wukong matchup if he's gonna lose. I just care about that late game potential.
And just to reiterate, it was 12 totems to 0 in favor of Deathwalker throughout that laning phase, roughly accumulating for about 1,500 of the 3,000 gold lead we saw at that about 15-minute mark. And it's a matchup that we're gonna run back once more. Baskin, of course, dominates those late game team fights, but it was rough for the first 15.
Do you think his goal this time is to get one? He's
At
gonna
least
turn
one.
it around.
Gotta get at least one.
He's gonna give it a go. They go for the same dual lane, the same solo laner, so we're running back the side lanes here for the Ferrymen. I want to see a change up from the Scarabs though, Bobby. I think support is the place to focus.
Yeah, and before we even talk about the supports, finally getting rid of that Susano. That's something that Mifflin was talking about a ton. No Susano for April. He's played more than the Susano, but he just looks exceptionally good on it. And for supports, agreed, no Fafnir. I don't want to see Fafnir. There's a lot of other gods that are able to be played in a spot like this. Even a god like Yemoja, a god that has dominated other parts of the year that we have not seen very high prio, I think makes sense in a comp like this. You get to that late game portion, she gives you just so many opportunities to play those fights in the late game. You can play peel, you can play to dive, you can play to just separate the fight. Maybe he doesn't play it because, as you said, he's only played those 3 gods since Qualies, but I just haven't loved the Fafnir.
I might even consider something like an Ares in this position for the Thor Scarabs. You got a lot of mobility on the other side. Maman plays very well into that too. Lockdown 72 transformations. Don't let Chernobog jump into wall. Prevent the initiation from Sobek. And then put some threat on beads. Not exactly a lot of CC on the Scarabs just yet.
There was some surprise hazer about Maman not being picked or banned in game number 1. Now makes the World Championship debut here in game 2 for the Styx Ferrymen. Surprised to see it take this long, and it's only been 1 game.
Yeah, it's a smart pickup here by the Ferrymen because I think it's another god that's taken away from April, right? You've denied the Bats, you've denied the Susano, you've denied the Mercury, and now you're denying the Maman as well. So he's going to have to go deep into his god pool. But it's not a big Cyno god, in my opinion. It's going to be interesting to see how he plays it. Normally, Cyno a bit more of a facilitator for this team, but Maman really is a hyper carry god.
We've seen a little bit of Maman flex even into mid lane. Curious to see if Paul's maybe been practicing it, because we have not seen him play it yet, but he's had 3 months since we've last seen him win, last seen him played. Maybe he's been practicing enough, or maybe they've just been able to flex and kind of change up how Cyno's going to be playing his jungle position, because usually we see the Ferryman play, Cyno's that engage player. He's the one that's looking to kind of start those fights. Maman doesn't do that. She wants to clean them up.
Yeah, she wants to be last in, but get all those kills, deal a ton of damage, and really just hold down the W key for the most part. But I like this interesting pickup. Camazot's end set, actually very interesting to round out this draft. But if it is going to be Maman Brigitte in the jungle, we talk so much about the jungle 1v1, especially around those fire giant dances, around these objective sieges, things like Phoenixes. And Camazot's is maybe the only god in Smite that I would say can handle a Maman Brigitte.
Styx Ferrymen lock in set with their final pick of the 5 going into game 2. Reminder for everyone, this is a best of 3 quarterfinal. Styx Ferrymen win, Solar Scarabs, their world's run is over. Scarabs win, we're obviously going to winner take all, game number 3. Stage now set, Hazer. Styx Ferrymen have been forced to change up their draft a bit from game 1. What does this composition hope to do for the Ferrymen in game 2?
It is late game, late game, late game. They've got a Maman to do a little bit of the early game work, but my goodness, is this scary to play against late. Set, one of the best dive characters in the game. Wukong, unbelievably safe. Bog, probably the premier late game hunter. And then you've got the Sobek as well to do a bit of the heavy lifting in terms of engage. They have gone all in on the late game here. They saw that they could weather the storm of losing the early game against the Scarabs in game 1, and now they're planning on doing it again, but this time with an even more powerful late game comp.
And on top of that, their comp kind of just plays really well together. They have this dive comp that you're explaining, and Chernobog's a really good dive hunter. You let your entire team go in, you play far back, and then you can look to go in whenever the fight's starting to go down. I think the big problem is a lot of the engage is really on the Sobek and on the Wukong. If they're not able to get these fights started, get some good engages, it might be a little hard for the Ferrymen to actually get some good fights.
Well, Bobby, I'd like to hear your opinion on how this Terra is going to play into the Styx Ferrymen's draft, because I'm seeing a lot of delayed damage. Maman Brigitte, all of her damage delayed. Earthen Fury having that massive heal, the mitigation. If it's an all-in dive composition, as far as I'm concerned, Terra is one of the best counter divers in the game.
Terra's usually been a really good counter diver. unfortunately, with Onk, how it is in the meta, it's very good into these healing backliners like Yamocha, like Terra. I think that's part of the reason we haven't seen them as much. But the real strength of this Terra is into that Sobek matchup where Sobek's gonna have a hard time starting fights onto this Terra. So it really just comes down to Osiris. How is Deathwalker gonna play into the Sobek? Is he gonna be able to live it? We saw it one time on the Pyro where he got plucked and he died before he even hit the ground. If it happens like that, it's gonna be a pretty easy fight, but if they can't find Deathwalker, who are they gonna find?
The stage has now been set. It's a potential knockout game number 2 as we go down to Gormizer and Trelly for the action.
Thanks so much, Dave and Trelly. We're in for, I think, a treat, right? We give them on. We get set back in mid, one of the classics for Paul. It just feels like something that's going to work really well, but both these teams, late game slanted, that could be dangerous for the Scarabs.
I think so as well, but you got to wonder how is Zyrhoes going to position against this much dive. You got the Wukong, which fantastic. Baskin played it in game number 1. You have Set to deal with, and now you've got Maman Brigitte. This isn't Paul sitting back on Vulcan. He will be getting active in Thoth. Not a lot of self-peel.
I think a little bit of pressure on all of them to try and get that going. One thing the desk was actually just talking about, and we actually got, I guess, a preview of it. It was a 35-minute preview, but a preview of that solo lane. Deathwalker on the Osiris, Baskin on the Sun Wukong. Scarabs right now fighting for their life in the tournament, right? They need to make sure they win this game. And Trelly, a lot of pressure last time, early game. They're able to control just a little bit. And it is now a little more in favor of the Ferrymen in the Twitch poll as well. Do you think that's the Maman, that weight, that extra 3%?
It could be a bit of the Maman. I would say a little bit of the Set as well, and just the fact that, hey, the duo lane of the Ferrymen just played this draft, right? They had the Cherno, they had the Sobek. Didn't go fantastic early on, but they knew exactly what they were doing towards the later end of that draft. So I like what Hazer said. You know, the Ferrymen realized, hey, we can weather the storm. We can sit this one out until late game where it's going to be disgusting. But I see some big problems with that right off the bat. Thoth has been known to just absolutely delete someone off the map, right? One Thothel, you're not paying attention. You don't think he's going to one-shot. You don't have Aegis ready. All of those can change a team fight. And Zyrhoes has been pretty on point. We just watched him in those group stages, and he was deleting people with his character.
I'm interested in this duo lane. Last time, Echrome. It was a lot of this. It was a roar up close onto Echrome just to deal some damage. Right now, we're not expecting too much, but plucks, right? That is something that is very dangerous. Silence doesn't have to worry about him, but Echrome, even when that dash is available, was feeling a lot of that pressure. But we had even seen it, you know, Cyclone early rotation, falls down, and then really doesn't do any of the other Chernobog things we had been expecting. Are you still, what, last game you would give him like a level 12 mark? Are you expecting something like that, or you expect maybe a little more hands-on approach? Maybe you could face that as beads get pulled by Zyrhoes in the mid lane. You can see some action already starting on Cyno's.
I mean, that's a risky start for Zyrhoes. You have two options there. You take your dash and you go, oh, I've got evade and punish. I can use it to get aggressive. I can use it to get back. Or you take the glyph, you get a little wall, and your one goes a bit further, right? One's not going to get you out of trouble like we just saw, but hey, he had better damage. But now you lose the beads. Paul goes forward, just trying to poke out, right? They want to get their backs, but Cyno blinks.
Hey, that's the chase, but do they have the damage lockdown? Body block's not quite good enough. Goes in,
Skewer.
One more shot,
there it
and
is.
There's the kill. Paul with first blood. Apreel has to play it safe, go back into the tier 1, but the Ferrymen start things off right.
And that all starts with Zyrhoes losing his beads early on, right? I really don't think you need to take the wall there. If you have your dash, you don't lose beads, you don't lose as much pressure, and you feel safer. But now you get first blooded, your beads are gone, and worst of all, you gave Paul Set a first blood, and look what he can do with it.
Paul just does everything he needs. This is a signature pick for a reason. 2-0 start, Trelly. And that's dangerous territory to be playing when you've got the assassin in the mid lane, plus the Maman beside it.
And that's going to be infectious, right? It's not as if Paul sits back and does nothing. Paul is one of the most mobile mid laners on a pick like this. You'll see him in duo lane. You'll see him over in solo. Set with his clones can go across the map in an instant, and now you've given him, I said 1-0 lead, now a 2-0 lead. It is going to be disgusting. This Transcendence is going to get online immediately. Why not? Purchase a Chalice. You've got the gold to burn.
He is in a great spot. You know, last time around, it's still a little shy of 1,000 gold, but because we kept mentioning for the Scarabs in their farm game, now you've got something pulling towards the Ferrymen and something to really combat them. That was some of the weakness we saw for the Scarabs during their run for those qualifiers in those groups to get to this point. Trelly, of course, you gotta imagine. Trying to keep a level head right now, right, as much as possible.
Oh, yeah.
You're down 1-0. You don't want to get knocked out here and now. So holding on to the best they can. How do you counter that, though? When a set gets a 2-0 start, he has an experienced lead, you're doing well. Where do you start putting pressure if you're the Scarabs to slow that down?
You said, how do you counter it, Gore? Very carefully is what I would say. It's not easy to deal with a Fed set. It's not easy to deal with Paul. Put them both together, and you've got disaster on your hands. But you gotta bait out the dive, right? Kingslayer, once it gets cooking, can absolutely run through a team fight. If you bait that ult out early, if Paul loses his beads, it gets a bit more difficult, right? CC is a great way to deal with Paul's damage. There are options available for the Solar Scarabs, but one thing you gotta keep into consideration, we are playing in front of a live crowd here in Arlington Testis, and there's a lot of Ferryman fans in the audience. You know, every time a kill comes through, the ground starts to shake and the Scarabs can hear it.
You feel that weight, especially on the stage. I was even talking with Deathwalker for a little. I mean, he's locked in right now. You can see that on all of their faces. They're trying to hold on. The composure for every Scarabs player, and admittedly every Ferryman that I saw during that break, very relaxed, right? Just trying to figure out changes for the next game, where they're going to go, what they're going to be looking at. And Trelly, the Ferrymen pretty much went back to the same drought outside of some aggression. And you know, we've talked about Maman, and maybe we should start to break into her now, but it really does feel like you get the Wukong, the Sobek, the Cherno. You have some of the essence of the front line, at least, and a little bit of the back line from last game. And this Maman is the spice that really makes it a new dish. And the build already is kind of catching my eye. Going for the tier 2, not upgrading fully to the Doom Orb, starting another item. I know we've talked about it, and you say, like, third item, that's when we get to see Maman really kind of pick up.
Yeah, you would say that until you see that that's a breastplate for Cyno, so maybe take maybe a little longer. Yeah, maybe take a little bit longer, or just playing safe. But remember, this is, despite the fact that a solid 3 gods on the side of the Ferrymen are the exact same from game 1, this is a night and day different comp, and I'll tell you why. You lose the burst from Vulcan, you lose the objective shred on Vulcan, and now Cyno is on the Maman. Sure, that's your magical damage, but I doubt the Styx Ferrymen play that 30-minute enhanced Fire Giant fight the same way this game, right? It's not as if Paul can just say, don't worry guys, I'll burst the EFG, or don't worry, we have that much DPS for it. They have to play around objectives so much differently. Sure, CycloneSpin's gonna get crit, he'll get online late game, but you can't just go towards objectives and say, hey, we've got more burst than you. Zyrhoes is on the other side of the map, and he's got plenty.
You had mentioned, I mean, not even just objective conversation, like straight up Paul, Cyno, Cyclone, like, well, I guess it depends on what Cyno's build is going to be, but the two of them, for Paul and Cyclone, you're in the wrong spot, Zyrhoes just gets rid of you. Yep. Like, you're just gone in a late game team fight, or you have the Aegis of your life, and you get to turn things around. And that's a really risky 50-50 to try and coin flip. But when it comes down to like team fights, that stands out as a really big point. And that's really the big thing. The slowdown, right, from the aggression, the junglers. Maman level ahead, Paul level ahead, but the 2 assassins haven't really been able to join forces again and get those sparks that we saw in the first couple minutes.
I mean, why would you at this point? Like I said, you got the 2-0 set. Paul is able to control mid lane perfectly. Zyrhoes is not going to want to step forward. If you don't have a reason to engage, the Styx Ferrymen should not be engaging. It's more so on the Scarabs to try and say, hey, we don't want to let you get late game, where Maman just gets to delete someone, where Paul has free reign of the backline. I don't care if you have Beads, Aegis, and alternate timeline. If a Thoth dashes and sets got Kingslayer, he's going to find you.
Apreel, good leap. Still some good damage get thrown out toward him. Half health. It's just going to be an invade on the buff. Tries to fight it back. Again, decent trade back with Cyno. But it's just a little bit of poke here or there. I do want to ask, though, Trelly, it's been a little while. For a long time, mages not only dominating mid, they were over in the solo lane.
Right.
But now, getting an assassin back in mid, not something I had expected to see, at least not on day 1. What is this life of set looking like, especially now? I can even say now in the year 2024.
It is the year 2024, and I will say it's not the Paul special. There has been Shinto loves this, but there have been plenty of mid laners that have gone to the set. I don't think it's, you know, the end-all be-all top meta pick. It's, does it look good here? And more specifically, what am I up against? In this case, a Thoth. Like I explained earlier, evade and punish. If you use it, set has so much range. He can chase you down so easily. The peel from Silence, the peel from Deathwalker is going to have to be pristine, because you can just brute force a gank if you're a set here. Just go for skewer, force the dash, teleport, pre-beats the root, and you're going to be able to just rip through with those Kingslayer procs. So yeah, I think it was a matchup Paul liked. It's a pick that he plays disgustingly well if given the opportunity. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to it continuously this week.
Deathwalker forced to ult. While we're looking at Paul specifically, is there anything special about the build you expect to come from mid? I mean, outside of the starter, I guess, from jungle to mid, that's going to make a difference. But anything that's going to stand out to you, or is it just going to be pretty standard?
Well, the Paul special is to throw a defense item in the mix. Hasn't done that so far. Obviously, it would be like 3rd or 4th item slot, but you can also just go full raw damage, and that's going to work just fine as well. There's an opportunity to sell away the Sundering Axe if you want a little bit more DPS and you don't think that the upgrade's worth it. But as far as I'm concerned, just full red items, man. Get a Serrated, get a Bloodforge if you'd like, get Heartseeker, and just get as much poke as possible.
Red items match the blood of his enemies. That's what he's trying to spill out there. Right now, 2-0, and it's both on Paul. He does not seem to be too worried about Zyrhoes damage just yet, but it's still an unfully stacked Book of Thoth. We've seen a little bit of poke, Shelly, but you know, I admittedly was maybe expecting more sparks in the solo lane. Was I wrong, or is this just something that you know, well, I guess because it's a Wukong, there's not too much you can do to make something happen over there?
Yeah, if anything, Cyno had the ability to get active early on over towards Deathwalker. You force that Lord of the Afterlife. It's not like there's a survivability relic in play. It's just that ultimate, but Cyno hasn't been the one to pull the trigger too early, right? Even at that Anvil of Dawn in game number 1, it wasn't as if he was throwing those out constantly. He prefers to sit back and farm. And again, in game number 1, he was getting behind. He was losing those trades. Now he's ahead. He's got an assist under his belt. Apreel has died already. You don't have to get active if you're the Styx Ferrymen.
I can't believe Echrome canceled his back. I thought something was about to happen. Silence doing his best bodyguard. Make sure that a pluck can't come through from Aror. Can't quite get to the carry. And luckily enough for Echrome, gets to back up, farm up a little more, then find the reset. Although with the Devo's Gauntlets, might not need the full reset. Pressure in duo, pressure in mid. It feels like pressure and winning right now over there in solo. The Ferrymen have the pillars of the map absolutely controlled. So Maman, we've been talking about, now tier 2 on that breastplate. Do you like Cyno's pace right now? We'll have to hold that thought for a moment. Zyrhoes, half health, dash is good. Baskin with an early rotation just to get a little bit of that poke. It seemed like Paul wanted to make the rotation, couldn't quite get in there. And they didn't force Zyrhoes to feel uncomfortable enough to get any relics.
And remember, that happened last game. Rinse repeated the same exact rotation from Baskin last time, pulled the beads, and Paul was able to find the Earthshaker to commit the kill. But I believe, yeah, Apreel got like a triple kill off the back end of that fight, so wasn't the best idea. Gets run back this time, not even the beads here from Zyrhoes, just wants to play it safe. Paul gets some good poke onto Zyrhoes, so with the dash available, feels better about diving. One skewer, if you get 2 clones, could actually take Zyrhoes out here, but he's staying so far back, and that's for good reason. I see 4 Ferrymen surrounding this mid tower. Real gonna have to go up.
Goes in deep, again, bat out of hell. I'm surprised Deathwalker got out of there as quickly as he did, but plays it safe. And now you're forcing some of that safety, right? That's the big deal, the big pressure point for the Ferrymen. Charlie, we're getting to the point soon. We're going to talk about Pyromancer, Gold Fury, probably in the conversation relatively soon. But as we had mentioned earlier, in big team fights, when Zyrhoes is available, that's dangerous to go for. When can the Ferrymen feel confident in it? Do they have to kill Zyrhoes first? Can they start to step up? Can they heat check? Or is that vibe going to be shattered by a Thoth?
As far as I'm concerned, they can still step up. I mean, it's going to be force the dash from Zyrhoes and immediately go in for the pull, even with Final Judgment. A max range ult, with how quickly the Ferrymen are able to burn through some of these objectives with Paul's build, can be risky. But I think, like I said, the Ferrymen, they can just sit back on their laurels, right? They don't have to step forward. They don't have to pressure anything. It really is the Scarabs that would want to try and just go in for a soft defense. But so far, they have shown no sign of wanting to force anything as well. They're sitting back. They feel confident in their late game as well. And it's not as if they don't have tools. I mean, Echrome, on one of the safest hunters in the game, has that hard carry potential, has the attack speed, stim baked into the kit. Throw that with a Thoth, throw with the Kamazots, and they've got answers as well.
Beacon, half charged for the Scarab. Cyno meets Apreel in the jungle. Good damage, and chases him down just a little bit. Not gonna follow any further. Beacon changes hands, though. Ferrymen march forward with 3. Cyno, again, still looking for some pokes, still looking for that pressure, but with Zyrhoes, half health, Apreel falling back to base. This one looks like it's going to be pretty heavily commanded by the Ferrymen. Charlie, they're going to pick up the first beacon of the game. Small advantage, but one that grows over time.
Certainly does. Cyno heads over to duo lane, just backs in the purple buff. Wants to see if Echrome will get aggressive. I don't see Mount of Archery going down ever if there isn't an absurd amount of pressure over on left lane, because so far Cyclone and Echrome have just been respecting each other, right? They sit up, both clear the wave, and then back up. I haven't seen any relics or low health bars. They have just been chilling, and that's what you can expect from a duo lane from a game like this, where there's no ganks coming through. It's just show up to neutral farm, maybe some soft invades, but that has been about it. Paul gets those 2 kills under his belt, and then stays in mid, as far as I'm concerned. Hasn't really left, hasn't felt the need to. Look at the solo laners, right? Teleport's not even upgraded. That tells you the story. They're not trying to rotate out. They're not trying to show up to a ward on the left side of the map. They're staying put.
You had mentioned last time, while we're looking at relics, that the shell, specifically for Silence, had been upgraded really early on. It was dealing with a Thor wall, so there's definitely a conversation around it. But this time it's Aror that I'm looking at, right? The meditation already towards the top.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of gold poured into that, but do you like seeing that early on? We've seen so many teams get med-baited.
That Cloak of the Ascetic can go hard, man. If you don't expect the cooldown to be back up, if you see that, Cyno already used his dash and needs a little bit of help, or he's just trying to dive forward, you can definitely just use that meditation to roll, and that's exactly what happens here. Purple goes down, Cyno still wants to step up. That's the benefit of this breastplate, right? You don't have to fear the physical damage dealers earlier on, so Cyno can just be a menace. Look at him poking out Silenced. He's got nothing better to do.
The way things have changed, Shelly, at Cyno, who is maybe the one that has the limelight right now, not necessarily because of the KDA, right? 001, the kills are over on Paul, and CycloneSpin actually is picking up a tower in the process of all this. And it is Cyclone and Aror that I think changed some of this recipe, right? Because they're doing similar things to last game. Deathwalker was under the ire of Aror. Any pluck goes towards the Osiris, pulls him back in. Cyclone just slams a bunch of crit autos into him, takes him down. You have a Thor wall to really enable the pluck. How does the Mammon change that engage, right? Can it still just be Aror, or do you need a little more, maybe the knockup, you have to use the ult commit, maybe harder from the Ferryman to get something to happen?
Yeah, as far as team fights go, it is going to be more so on Aurora. I think that Cyno is going to wait to all in, use that blink, get to the back line, dash through, soul surge, that sort of thing. But not right now, right? It'll be in ganks, and now finally Pyromancer started up. This is where the Ferryman got so much value last game, and they're getting it again. Yeah, not even in close. Zyrhoes didn't even step forward. Silence didn't even know what was going on, and that's going to happen for free. Cyclone just flies on back. What a beautiful play. Comes from base and uses the ult to fly back to lane so he misses 0 farm.
Farm, haven't done a gold check in a little bit. 15 minutes in. It's still just the 2-kill lead for the Ferryman, but it's 3,000, Shelly, and 7,000 experience in their favor. No level 20s on the board. That is all on
Paul's 1K up.
Mostly Cyno, yeah, all there, and Paul. I mean, they are feeling this lead through and through in every single roll.
Man, it's not good when you see that apreel is behind Silenced as well. That's about a farm that you can't give up. As a jungler, you need to be a little bit more ahead, but he's been being starved. The invades have been coming through, and of course, Cyno owns the jungle at the moment on this Amon. He walks up fearlessly around corners. He's been living around this purple buff. He says, hey, Cyclone, we already got the tower. Let's see if we can find Echrome, and constant pressure towards this Hachiman. He's living under tier 2. Not a great place to be, but you have no other options.
They're looking for a purple buff. Again, Echrome can't do much with his tier 1 gone. Paul maybe enables good rotations. You can see him walking up behind Aror. But you had already mentioned it. Echrome has the ult, has the beads. Doesn't have to use either there to get away. Ichutsu, just enough space to make sure that there's the distance away from the Ferryman. It hasn't stopped Aror from playing aggressive. But a heavy investment from Ferryman on left. It feels like they're willing to show face over here often, and you haven't really looked at that objective just yet. That Gold Fury kind of sitting there tantalizing.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying from last game. It's a night and day different composition. If Paul's on Vulcan, that gold's been pulled twice by now, but the set just brings different objects to the table. Similar amounts of shred, yeah, the auto attacks will chunk, but it's that burst and it's that turn. There are two things that can come into play. Needs here from Echrome, but Cyno wants to go in.
Up down for CycloneSpin, chasing with Echrome. It's Cyno, but he takes a lot of damage. Apreel separates the fight, but he's in a 1v2. You gotta play it carefully. Gets the kill he's looking for, but he loses his life for it. Baskin with a massive rotation. Teleport down, gets to the back lane, kills off Echrome. And now, like you said, push down the lane. They have control, and no one's coming to stop them.
Yeah, no one on the side of the Scarabs. I mean, props to Apreel. Takes the 1v1, says, I'm going in here. Gets good damage, and Cyno ends up falling. Of course, you give the kill over to Cyclone, you lose a tier 2, and Baskin with the clutch rotation confirms the dive. Now the Solar Scarabs have to figure out, hey, Gold Fury looks pretty good right now. Are we going to show up to her? The Styx Ferrymen is going to get it for free.
Beacon seems to be under control for the Scarabs, so that means Zyrhoes is in a good presence to try and get aggressive around a Fury, but won't be there in time. Ferrymen pick up the gold, and Trelly, they extend this lead 4-1 in kills just 3 minutes after the last check-in. Now 4,000 gold for the Ferrymen.
And that's something that probably could have been stopped, right? But look at Deathwalker's relics. He never upgraded that teleport. Baskin invested the gold for his team, makes the clutch rotation, confirms the kill. That rotation got a tier 2, it got the kill, and a gold Fury. Whereas Deathwalker, I think he invaded speed buff and pushed down the tier 1. So he was getting things done, yes, and the XP looks fine for him, but did not end up getting as much done for his team because that teleport wasn't an issue. In this case, though, do you think that was a choice he made willingly? I'd say, hey guys, we can't fight. I'm not going to upgrade teleport. Don't expect me to rotate. I'm just going to own this side of the map.
So far, he's doing a pretty good job of that, right? Everybody else has been falling behind. 2 levels still in the jungle, despite getting a kill there for Apreel. And specifically getting that kill onto Cyno, a very important one to maybe pick up, and doesn't stop Cyno at all. He is controlling that jungle the same way he was before. Has the advantage. Pyromancer coming back in just a second, maybe a small opening for the Ferryman to try and step forward to. We haven't seen pressure onto Zyrhoes there, though. Right now, Echrome, no beads, no Aegis. If you start a fight, is it around duo, despite the fact that there's not a lot of room to work with over there anymore?
I mean, they have the ability to, right? As long as Cyno's nearby, he can catch out Echrome, force the dash, then Cyclone goes to the sky. But Echrome shouldn't even be in duo as far as I'm concerned. There's no tier 1, there's no tier 2. You're really risking stepping up that far. But Pyromancer's back up. That's the ultimate force, is that Lord of the Afterlife, but Deathwalker should be all right.
Now CycloneSpin, though, on this side of the map, maybe is the showcase. I always say, watch the carries where they go. Silenced is the goal right now. Doesn't get pulled back, but at least stunned for a moment there. Zyrhoes with a charge up, couple of shots. Literally, it's going to be a wash around the fight. Now, around the objective, we might have a different conversation. Deathwalker plucked back, and Baskin runs in to control him one last time. Slows are good, but they don't really have the damage follow-up. Their carries have fallen back. The front line finally has Cyno for some assistance, and they're burning that health bar slowly. Deathwalker taken down by CycloneSpin, and now the re-engaged Cyno chasing down with the help of Baskin. Silence locked out of his life and taken down easily.
Apreel was in the backline. He decided to go back to base. There's no way a defense for the Pyromancer is here, but the Styx Ferrymen, they should feel pretty confident. Baskin goes back, wants to teleport in. Fire Giant is certainly on the cards here.
Don't have too much to worry about. Zyrhoes, no ult. Is anyone going to step up to try and go for the Zyrhoes? I don't know if he could. Paul, Aror waiting just around the corner. Apreel in the neighborhood. Has Bat out of hell. A little bit of an opening, falls back immediately, and that is the concession. Fire Giant, 21 minutes in.
Guys,
Jelly, it's going to all of the Ferrymen.
They almost forgot it. They almost left it behind. They went in, got it real low. But yes, Fire Giant on 5. This is a very early FG gore. I'm not sure it's going to break the base necessarily, but tier 2s, tier 1s, and mid and right should definitely be the topic of conversation. I think the Scarabs are playing this as best as they can. Get away from the Ferryman, right? Except Deathwalker. He's going to stand here and try and defend. Not losing a tier 2 for free. Definitely a good look. But now Primal Fury is spawning in. There is a lot of real estate for the Styx Ferrymen to grab. 6-1. Not been much action here for the Scarabs. They haven't had many opportunities to fight back. And the Styx Ferrymen, they're going to keep up this pace. Look at this. Cyclone just flying in, trying to force out that ultimate.
Gets it. No problem. The relics are going to be there for Echrome, but like, I mean, we already talked about he doesn't really have anywhere that's safe on that side of the map to farm. Maybe those minions are going to help out with the tier 1 and give them a little bit of an assist, and it is a little bit of gold for the Scarabs. And a small opening on the map. Trelly, otherwise the lanes mirrored for the most part. Not a lot of damage on Zyrhoes' tower, maybe expected from a Thoth, but keeping things in parity for the way things have shaken out those Zyrhoes. And Silence have to be careful, zoned out by Aror. Tier 1 and mid goes down. Meanwhile, Cyno, Cyclone take down the Primal Fury, and they just extend this lead. They use this Fire Giant to the maximum of its capabilities.
Deathwalker was pushing right, goes back to base, wants to help defend this tier 2 tower. As the Styx Ferrymen, still with a bit of a puzzling siege here. You got CycloneSpin over on left. He's got no fear at all. He knows exactly where the majority of the Scarabs are. Apreel trying to go for a wraparound, but doesn't really find a way into this engagement. If anything, Deathwalker's getting aggressive.
Might be in trouble. Paul has him right there, but can't quite get the damage necessary. Now Silenced in a dangerous position. Double dash, gets him double the width out of there. Phoenix is the main target. We've got Cyclone. Paul not playing a ranged carry this time. Will have to get in there to deal a little bit more, but Trelly, they're looking for it. It's conceded. Ferrymen get the first Phoenix of the game. Scarabs, no response. A little bit of damage onto Baskin, but he falls back. And with a good juke to the right, dodges out Zyrhoes and is going to escape this fight.
Yeah, and the Styx Ferrymen, they get in, they get out. Like I said, early Phoenix. I thought the target would have been just tier 2s. But you don't want to overextend. Your lead is not so massive that you can do no wrong. But look at this wraparound play. Aror loves this. He wants to find Zyrhoes.
Has the knock up. Again, both relics and the dash there for Zyrhoes, but the chase is on. CycloneSpin landed down, slowed everybody. Look at the damage. Oh my God, they are just erasing the Solar Scarabs. Apreel, bat out of hell, gets some distance and gets him out of there, but it can't save Zyrhoes. It can't save Silence, and it might not save Echrome. He's just outside the Phoenix line. Should be fine, but for a team with Fire Giant, it opens up a lot more of the map. They're going to go for the tier 2 and keep on pushing.
You cannot group up in a small corridor against Paul. He has so much damage with these skewers, and now mid-Phoenix is the target. Deathwalker on the opposite side of the map. This is a 5v2. They might go in here.
Marching
they
already.
Do.
He's shown himself. Back is there. You've got the 3v5. Deathwalker leaps forward, has to make a defense, or the tournament could be over here. Falls back to the fountain and has the healing. The Ferrymen, maybe a little bit of a vibe check here, Trelly. Have to fall back. They leash the Titan. Now you gotta get away with this murder. Deathwalker with a teleport, goes around looking for the slow, has Cyno locked up where he needs him, gets the kill that's necessary to turn this one around. Ferryman scattering to the winds as Cyclone locked down, knock up, good, but you can't save the backliner. Deathwalker with the play to turn this one on its head.
Baskin needs to get out of here, but he can't find it. Echrome picks up the kill as well. The Styx Ferrymen have bit off more than they can chew. Paul and Aror, the only ones left alive, and now it's gonna be a Pyromancer attempt here for Echrome. This is going to work out. Grab yourself the Runic Bomb. And what do the Solar Scarabs do now? Just checking, see if they can find any lazy backs. Doesn't seem to be the play. It's not the end of the world, Gort. The Ferrymen were able to grab 2 birds, right? That was more of a damage check just to see if they could send Deathwalker back. He showed up immediately, hit a massive ultimate, goes back to base one more time, and then teleports in behind. He is doing just about all you can on an Osiris.
Well, Zyrhoes, maybe a little heat check damage. Paul or Aror lose their life there. It's a massive stagger. Changes maybe the field we're looking at. But now, Trelly, you've got Fire Giant coming back just under a minute. You've got respawns coming through for all of the Ferrymen. Zyrhoes, I should say, if Aror had any backup, this might be a lot of pressure. He's waiting for Paul, who's looping around. Looking for the mid laner, goes in, instead finds Echrome, forces out the Aegis. No beads just yet for the carry, no ult to work with. Echrome has to fall back. You've got Baskin, you've got Cyclone, you've got kills exactly where you need them. Zyrhoes, Echrome, backline already off the board. Apreel in no man's land. Osiris on the left side of the world, and the Ferrymen outside of Cyno marching straight down mid, keeping at least one in action. Cyno making sure there won't be enough to defend. The Titan is in danger, and so is Silence. You got the frontliners doing the best they can, but the damage check, it's still there. Trelly, Paul, low, Scarabs, life on the line. Apreel already gone now. You've got to make another miracle happen. Deathwalker doing what he can. No one can take him down. He's got 4. He's got 5 surrounding him. Finally, they go through. They kill the Osiris. They march into this Titan room, and the Ferrymen are going to do what they've been doing all year. They're going to keep on winning and take this set 2-0.
Look at those low health bars, Gort. Low margins, but the Ferrymen do not care. They have the damage, they have the Titan, and they have the calculated play to take this one 2-0.
Jelly, they vibe check the Titan.
Yep. doesn't go well.
I thought that was going to be catastrophe.
Right.
They do it a second time and everything just lines up. Deathwalker almost makes that miracle play though.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. He was over on left lane once again. When the Titan siege is coming, he's in no man's land. He quickly gets back in time, but just did not have the damage, right? You saw Silence hit so much CC. The damage was there. They just couldn't finish kills. And when you're trying to keep a Titan alive, you gotta kill those damage dealers.
This is a team that everyone in the Pro League has been struggling to take down. The Scarabs gave them a run for their money. Game 1, closer, advantage even over the Scarabs for a majority of it. This time around, though, every step of the way, double kill early. 2 kills picked up for Paul. creates a very troublesome dynamic for him. And then we finally get to see why that Maman has been so highly prioritized.
Yep, and that's the thing. Cyno, all he had to do the whole fight was keep Apreel busy. He's like, hey, I'm not going to try and kill you. Eventually I will. He'll get the solo kill, but you just can't back. If you're not doing damage to our damage dealers, the Titan will drop. The Styx Ferrymen calculated, and that's what has made them the top seed team in this tournament. They do not make many mistakes.
And this is a team, and we've seen this countless times and discussed with other players, all the other casters, like anybody who talks about them. What do? They play their roles, and they play them damn well. Is it going to be insanely flashy? Sometimes yeah, sometimes no. This time, I'd say the flashy was there. And of course, the guy who was doing a lot of the flashy plays, we've got Paul, I believe, on stage who's ready for an interview.
Hello and welcome, everyone. I got Paul here with me. So, at the start of that game, Deathwalker said that he hopes you enjoy the 2-0. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, it was fun set, but I don't think it was as easy as like a 2-0. Like we were actually kind of getting owned game one, so it was definitely not an easy 2-0.
Yeah, I want to talk about game one there because it looked like it was relatively even, and then you guys were able to claim the Fire Giant, but then right afterwards, of course, we saw you guys go down 3 players. How were you able to regain your composure and go for the win?
So at that Fire Giant, we 3 of us died, but we actually got it. So when Fire Giant's down, we're actually delaying the game a lot, and so we're just like, okay, let's just farm up. We're going to win this late game, and that was kind of what we did.
And obviously, game 2 was starting to go a little bit better for you guys. You guys were controlling until the final moment there. It looked like there was a moment where it could have been reversed. What was comms going like? And once again, how were you guys able to claim the win?
I think the call was go for the Titan. And I'm just like, I'm scratching my head a little bit. I'm like, I don't know if we can go for this, but we kind of threw a little bit. But I think we were like always in control though.
Yeah, definitely, and obviously going 2-0 in the first quarterfinals is a great way to start the games. Tomorrow, you guys have semifinals. How's everyone feeling about that, and what are you going to do to prepare?
We're feeling good. We're just all just going to keep just trying to get better and more focused and just be the best we can.
And you guys did a great job. Congratulations again, Paul. I'll let you go back to your team, and we're going to be heading back to the desk.
It's a 2-0. But not as easy as a 2-0 seems, according to Paul. We welcome you back to the post-game desk as Dolson, Mifflin, Inbound, and Hazer will break down what we just saw and set the stage for the rest of the day. Fellas, our first team falls out of Worlds. Our first team moves on. Miff, I think there's something about just getting through that first game for the Styx Ferrymen. They were favored. I think it's the outcome we expected. Weird things can happen in best of threes. But they got it done and got their first win.
And they find their equilibrium going into game 2, considering the pace of game 1, getting essentially blown out throughout the early, then having to fight your way back in. That can kind of wear on your mental a bit. Are we going to lose out on the early again? Do we have to play into this deficit? But the Ferrymen keep their heads on straight, and it was a concise victory.
And the interesting part to me is they showed now that they can play 2 different styles. They have that game 1 objective style, go to the objectives, burn them down, Mirrodin, 50-50s. Game 2 style is completely different. We want to dive into the backline. We want to take as many fights as possible, running them down. Yes, they played the Chernobog in both games, but the Chernobog was utilized in different ways. So I think it was interesting to see the Ferrymen, our #1 seed, has multiple different metas that they can play already.
We'll see more of those metas unfold as the weekend goes on. We're going to look back at what happened here in game number 2 through our Steel Series Moments of Glory. And Hazer, maybe you can walk me through some moments that jump out at you. This one seems a bit cleaner from the Styx Ferrymen right off the bat. Paul on this set making his mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked about how they didn't really have great early pressure, but Paul and Cyno wanted to prove me wrong. They pick up 2 early kills in mid and get this set off to a roaring start. And then from there, they just controlled the map. They actually transferred that over to the duo side of the map and gained a huge lead over there. And they just controlled the game. They played super clean. They didn't make hardly any mistakes. There was that one, maybe a little bit of a dodgy Titan push, but just really, really clean smite from the Ferrymen.
I suppose when you build yourself a 10,000 gold lead, you can fumble a little bit in the Titan room and then just regain and come back just a moment later. Myth, was this the Styx Ferrymen you were expecting to see today, specifically here in Game 2?
They exceeded my expectations, because I'll be completely honest. Maman Brigitte is so important in the meta right now, and I was not certain that Cyno had one. So him even putting that on display puts you in check for P's and B's for all of their sets going forward. You now have to respect that pick.
I feel like he's kind of done me in there, though. I said it's not a Cyno pick, it's not a hyper carry pick, and then he builds breastplate second item. He finishes it before his Doom Orb. He makes things work the way he wants them to work, whether the kits are intended for that or not.
Heard you, made the pick, made it work. Inbound, is the rest of the tournament on watch now? Look, Styx Ferrymen, they're the #1 seed. I think we're all on watch anyway. But has the gauntlet been thrown down a bit in our second match of the day, our second game of the day in our first matchup?
I mean, I think Mifflin hits it on the mark. You expected a good team coming out, but we were shown even more than expected. The Maman, which they both touched on, we didn't know if they were able to play it, so that's something that's interesting to see.
The bracket begins to unfold now as our first team has moved on to the semifinals. The Styx Ferrymen await the winner of the Jade Dragons and the Highland Ravens. Leviathan's Mambo later today. And we will end things on our first day of the SMITE World Championship with the Oni Warriors and the Camelot Kings. Let's set the stage for a potential semifinal. Dragons, Ravens, Myth. What's a better matchup for the Styx Ferrymen in your mind?
Man, it's interesting. The Ravens, of course, having a tumultuous path to this event maybe leaves a bad taste in your mouth a bit. Do they have it? Are they able to compete still at this highest level? I'd argue yes. The Ravens have really impressed me throughout the year, but something about Vaporish Coast Dragons is just a little different.
Hazer, the emotions of the arena, I think, are going to be on watch here in our second quarterfinal. Set some early expectations for me, if you will, for Dragons and Ravens.
I think this is a match for me that will be won and lost in the mid lane. We've got Venenu versus Dardes. Dardes has a eclectic god pull.
Say what you want to say. Say what you want to say.
Well, sometimes he doesn't play things that are good. Sometimes he plays things that are bad instead. But with the Maman mid that he's shown, hopefully he comes out and he shows he has a Toth, a Baba Yaga, a Raijin. I want to see the best meta picks coming out from him, and I want to see him playing strong on them. Maybe with a sprinkling of spice in there. Maybe a Morrigan, maybe a Hera.
Though the story ends here for the Solar Scarabs, I want to give all the love to them. What a year they've had. Again, an SEC team making it to the world stage. No small accomplishment. But it's the Styx Ferrymen moving on to our semifinals, and that is quarterfinal #1. We've got 3 more quarterfinals left for you here today in our first day of the SMITE World Championships here in Season 10. Don't go anywhere. Quarterfinal #2 coming up next.
It's funny how the world keeps turning. Stars like ladders in the sky keep burning, burning. It's crazy how the storms keep raging. And I'm here.
Woke up this morning, yeah, feeling reborn, and it's like a new dawn. The misery's off, the energy's on, and I'm feeling strong. Yeah, something's evolving. If I'm being honest, nothing can stop me. I'm feeling good.